Good evening, everybody, and I'm back. Sorry about that 3-month interlude there. I have a 6-month-old who, until this evening, was in a new sleep schedule and going down like a princess, and today wanted to fight me. She's a strong girl. So, I apologize for the delay. I'm back, and I'm here with Trevor Loewen, who just went 6-0, what, 2 weeks ago now?
I think 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. At the Wet Coast Super Major, 164 players. You came in second, undefeated, 6-0. What? How's that feel, man?
Honestly, kind of pretty surreal after that day, because going into that tournament, my expectations was going like at least 2 wins and 4 losses, and then first day went 3-0, and then on the car ride back to sleep is like, hey, me and my buddies were just joking, like, you could go 6-0. I was like, that's not gonna happen. Like, there's a lot of scary lists and scary people at the top that are really good, and
Uh,
we're here now.
Were you, and this is your second, like,
Yep.
GT level event ever,
Yep.
and then
Second
you just
GT.
knock it out of the park.
Yep.
Well, congrats, man. And you already have some Doomhammer questions in chat, which is great. So you're a Horde player then?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. I am a
Good
horde
man.
player. Yeah.
That's good.
Love the shaman.
Awesome. All right. Well, I always start these interviews with a new guest. I want to know, like, how long have you been playing Warhammer, and then what brought you to Grey Knights, and then we'll get into your list and your matchups. For those of you listening in, please ask your questions. That's why we do these live. We want as much audience engagement as possible. And I did put out a form beforehand so people who are asleep at this time in the UK can ask questions. So I will ask you those throughout the interview as they seem like they're relevant. So. How'd you get into Warhammer, my friend?
So I started playing. What was it? Just late tail end of 8th edition, and I've always just kind of like liked it. I had started painting fantasy back in like 7th grade, which is I don't know how many years ago at this point, but a friend of mine got into 8th, and I was like, cool, I'll get back into it. And been playing kind of since, just casually with a bunch of friends, just buddies, just all playing around. And then what was it? My main army ended up being Tyranids, and they're just fun. I like all the little Gribblies. And then
Bugs.
the what was it? Ninth edition, the Grey Knight Codex came out, and I'd always, like, in the back of my head, just really liked just the space wizard aesthetic of Grey Knights. And just once that codex came, I was like, you know what? We're gonna do it, and bit the bullet. And then I've been playing pretty much Grey Knights and Tyranids ever since then, but mostly Grey Knights for 10th edition so far, and it's been a blast.
That's awesome, man. So you and I have been playing like at the same time because I think I got
Nice.
in 2 games at 8th before 9th hit, and it was like, all right, we're all sheltering in place. I guess I'll go find a new expensive hobby. I'm sure my wife will be thrilled. So, yeah, well, welcome. And you are obviously learning a lot faster than I am. So, do you want to just get into your list? Is there any more to that, or
um, I not that I can think of. I
yeah?
the competitive side to it has always been like super intriguing to me. I like to read a lot of just
Hmm.
like competitive analysis, YouTube channels of just going over top list like this, and just all the army statistics, and just looking how every army functions. And I think that's going to like tournaments and playing, is that's kind of like half the battle, is just knowing what your opponent does.
Yeah, for sure.
And I found that that's been a great help in like getting to through the games that I got through at the Wet Coast.
That's true. Like as your game knowledge increases, right? You like I got you, right? I went to
Mm-hmm.
an RTT and I played my Grey Knights into Death Watch. And it's like, dude, I know everything you do. I know exactly how this list plays already. Like I got your number.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a competitive minded guy. Let's go back to your Doomhammer back there. You were a raider, probably, I assume.
Yep, I
Yeah.
raided for a few years just here and there with just one of my best friends, and we just it's just a fun time. It's
Yeah.
always just trying to push the numbers and then pushing mythics when those came out. It's
Yep.
always a fun time.
Yeah, I was right there with you. I was a main tank and a progression guild leader for many years, so through
Nice.
Legion. So yeah. Anyway, no one cares about WoW. Let's talk about
Yes.
40k, huh? Let's get into your list.
hmm
This was like your buddy Daniel posted this up in the Grey Knight Discord. Which, by the way, if you're listening and you aren't in there, there's a link down below. You should join. It's an awesome group of people. Posted your list, and I had like skimmed past the part where he's like 6-0, right? He's like, here's like a cool list. And I'm like, man, this list slaps. Like this list looks like it's a lot of fun. I don't know how you play it, but it looks like a lot of fun. And then I scrolled back up, and he's like, oh yeah, my buddy Trevor just went 6-0 with this list. It's like, oh, I gotta get that guy on the stream. So when you created this list, like, what was your general thought process? Where were you? What problems were you trying to solve that the normal net list didn't have for you?
So, at least like from my understanding, the net list typically has been like 6+ or 6 dreads and then stuff, and then another one that I was looking at 4 dreads and 2 big Terminator bricks, and those look really good. And I think those lists are still fantastic and can do like well in a, a wide array of matchups. 2 10-man bricks is just a little bit unwieldy in my own hands personally. I just didn't know what to do with such a big unit, and I just kind of like was looking at it and I took it away. And I was like, okay, if we take away 10 paladins or 10 terminators, what can we put in this? And coming from Tyranids, I like having lots of little stuff and things
Little
to do
gribblies.
actions and whatnot. So it's like 2 strikes because I love Sticky. Sticky has been fantastic in almost every matchup of my games. And then interceptors are super fun with just how fast they are, because 12 inches and then just auto advance with the detachment up to 18 inches. They just move super fast for secondaries. And I've in that Grey Knight Discord and just a few others, like going 18 inches and just tossing a grenade for mortal wounds into tough things like Catan or just like big vehicles that typically we'd
Land
like struggled into.
Raiders.
Yep, it's fantastic where you, if you have the CP to spend and you really need to take it out, tank shock, grenade, combine those,
Yeah.
averages I think like about like 9 to 10 mortal wounds, and that really just makes taking out a land raider just much easier than it
Yeah.
used to be.
And if you can pump past those like those Catan like invuls and just get them
hmm
right onto their feel no pain. Yeah,
Yeah.
it helps a lot. That's cool.
hmm
So to go over the list for those of you that don't know, we have Caldor Drago, we have a Tech Marine, we have a Grandmaster Dread Knight with the Sigil of Exigence, a 10-man Terminator squad with Psy Cannons, which I thought was very interesting, and you have Drago in with them, obviously. There's no other place for him to go, and you're definitely not using him alone.
No.
2 strike squads, 2 interceptors, no special weapons on those squads, which I also completely get. And then you have 3 Dread Knights with all the fixing except one is a great sword. And I wanted to ask you, is that just a modeling thing?
Um, I I I wasn't sure. Just like going to this tournament, I was kind of like, I wanted to, in case there was ever the situation where it's like, hey, Drukhari or just Eldar, I like the sword better than the
For the sweep?
hammer for the sweep. Just like
Mm,
hitting on 2s, 10 attacks. It's cute. It's probably still not the better choice
yeah.
at the end of the day. Where like I think I used the sweep once out of the 6 games, and that was into Drukhari, but it's just like it was it was okay.
Yeah. So the one with the great sword has an incinerator and a psy cannon. They obviously all have psy cannons because that new
Yep.
profile is so good.
hmm
And the other 2 have Gatling silencers. How'd you feel? Like that's a big debate. Is everybody is always like, do I bring a silencer or an incinerator? And I think the meta has generally settled on the incinerator. It's 18 inches now.
Mhm.
It's -1, ignores cover. Obviously, it's fantastic into Drukhari and any elves, like anything T3. You know, it's fantastic. So why, like, did you find that the Gatling silencers did work for you?
They did a little bit. They did little chip wounds here and there, but at the end of the day, I think for the majority of situations, flamers are better. I just wanted to take the silencers just to actually see how they do all around. But the
Sure.
biggest thing that I liked about them is that if I really need to stay far back, I can keep my dreads at 24 inches and shoot both of the weapons.
Right.
Where if the dreads with the flamers, you have to be 18 or like 17.9 inches away if you want to do flamer and
Yeah.
the side cannon. So in
If
some matches where that came up.
if you're doing that awkward measuring where you're asking like world eaters how far they can go.
Yep, they go far, so I want to
Yeah,
stay far
they
back.
go really far. The answer is very.
Very,
Yeah.
it's scary how far they go.
And then you can round that out with the Calidus, who I always find is awesome too. But
She's just a nice little tech piece, another uppy downy piece. She's 90 points compared to what a strike squad for 125 is just nice to just be able to throw away. And what I like about her a lot is that she's a little tech piece that if you're trying to push for center or push for a side objective, the lone op either forces people to come close to her, which deal with her, or charge her. She has fights first, but like she's not super hard to kill. But with that, I kind of stage up either dreads or the terminators close by to be like, hey, I'll get these free secondary points on my turn, and if you want to kill her to take out my scoring potential, go ahead. But I have something to like take out whatever your trading piece is.
Very cool. Very cool. So for the same 90 points, can I interest you in a brother Captain Stern?
I have looked at him. I don't have the model, and I've been looking to kit bash one because I have looked at that before, and the in one of the matchups that does come up in the mirror.
Interesting. Yeah, the absolutely right. The Vect, the Legend Smith just pointed out the Vect can swing a match like. With our -2 AP, if you can Vect Armor of Contempt when you go into Space Marines, like, you know, they can blunt our AP really hard, but that makes it so that they, you know, unless they're, you know, Ultramarines and just shit command points, they have to really decide whether or not they're going to spend 2 CP for Armor of Contempt. Yeah. I like her a lot too. So very cool. I guess, are there any questions for anybody in the list? I mean, it's very cool that you brought like more power armor. I've tried the double brick list as well, and I think you and I ran into the same problem where I don't feel like I have enough stuff to do things. You know, like I can't screen, I can't move block. I don't want to move block with a paladin brick because I'm gonna lose a 600 point unit or whatever, 500 and something, you know, when it's led like led by a GM or whatever, you know. And so it's cool that you have that stuff. Like so I've been talking to Trevor for a few days. I actually took his list to a little league game last night, and I got absolutely trounced by a weird Yanari list. But it was neat because I had more options. Like I actually used a strike squad to 3-inch deep strike and get me deploy teleport homers, I think on turn 2. And that's an option that I didn't have with my other list. Just I didn't have enough units to really do that stuff. So very cool. Yeah, and then Esquire has an interesting question, which is they actually posted up in the document. They want to know why you don't have any librarians. So his question is, how come you didn't take any librarians in this list? Most of the Grey Knights community is agreeing that NDKs are going to be changed in some way in the next update. What are your thoughts? And if you agree, what changes do you think might happen? So that's kind of a twofer. So let's ask first, like, why did you not, like, if you take out a Terminator brick, you got room for two librarians now just by themselves.
I like them quite a bit, and I think they are fantastic. I just always felt bad. It's definitely shouldn't happen, but it always feels like rolling a 2-up on Vortex. The math is totally for you there, but it always feels like in the
You,
matchups it's a
you always,
50-50.
yeah, you always feel like you're gonna roll that one and blow
Like
away a Terminator
in
or
my first
himself.
GT that I had gone to, I had taken, I think it was two solo libbies and then the third libby with the 10-man paladins. And I think, again, unfortunate, just dice be dice sometimes, but like I think out of the 5 games at that GT, I killed 3 librarians over 5 games. Or just like they just rolled a 1 and then I rolled a 5 on the mortal wounds. It's like
Yeah,
that's just that, and I still think they're fantastic. Them being led by a 5-man Terminator squad is something I do want to try out. I think there was that we had talked about a little bit about I think it was the Ed Watts list with
yeah,
three 5-man Terminators with 3 librarians. That list really interests me just because I do like what they bring to the table of 18-inch, a lot of mortal wounds, and they also have the grenade keyword. So if you have the CP, you can prognosticate or rival them, grenade, and then also vortex something just
yeah.
to absolutely
It's
blow
gross.
something up. It's really good. I just wanted to try the dreads, see how they actually feel, and then just this is just a personal touch with the more interceptors and strikes, just to have guys to do stuff. And you could do that with librarians because they are a little bit cheaper, but I just liked having the more bodies and just the 2-up save. And like I was saying before, the extra sticky I really like, especially into shooting matchups where they don't have a lot of stuff to push forward. So it really forces them to either let you just sticky something or
Yeah,
like they have
like
to try to kill it.
yeah, and man, there's so much to unpack with what you just said. I'll try to remember in the order that you brought them up. Libby's killing themselves, like that isn't even what I experienced. Like I experienced when you get that 6, right? I got a 6 in one game
Oh,
with one librarian, and then I rolled 10, which was amazing. I blew away this one unit, and my opponent was like, "Are you kidding me? 10?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, buddy." Same librarian later in that same game rolls another 6, and he's like, "Come the fuck on!" And I rolled 2. I rolled Snake Eyes, and I'm like, "Well, there you go. Like take 2." So,
yeah, they
like, even
definitely
when
got
you
the
roll the
sticky.
6, like you've just gotten past the first gating roll, right? Now you need to see what the real roll is. So,
Mhm.
that's crazy. Um, and then, so the Ed Watts list, I've been running for 3 games now, and a modified version of that list, and
Mhm.
I really like it. I want to see how it does into suns, and I know that it completely blunts the mirror match. Because if they
Yeah,
don't have librarians and you do, and you stick them in with your Terminators, you have their damage for the whole game.
yeah,
Like, it's a
it's
4-up feel
rough.
no pain against all psychic weapons. That's absurd into the mirror match because all of our
Mhm.
stuff except the incinerator are and the stormbolters are psychic
Yeah,
weapons. So
that's like,
you just win that match at that point, you know.
yep.
So I've been looking at that too. I think that's a cool list. I call that my full violence list because it's just about doing as much damage as possible.
Mhm.
Um, Castron is in chat. He says, not a DK player, but am I correct in assuming that this list tries to get Kaldor and 3 Dread Knights in the opponent's phase smacking in or face in one turn? So, like, are you doing a go turn?
In the games that I'd played, I think a go turn is like probably one of the better ideas when you are able to get that going off. I personally play pretty reserved and passive, where I'm just trying to do little precision strikes, depending on where the map is, just because Grey Knights have that much mobility to just
Mhm.
kind of hit where they move a little bit too far forward or do a little bit just like overextend just a little bit. But I think there was like 2 or 3 games where they did push a little bit too far, and I was like, okay, my dreads are all in position. Caldor is here to also then just drop down and just get a good charge, or just pick them up and then come down for a 6-inch charge. And there's there's definitely 2 games I think where that like it was just throw everything in the face and be like, if you can deal with it, that's rough on my end. But if you can't, then this is actually really good, because once those things are thrown in the face and they just can't deal with that effectively, the 2 strikes and the 2 interceptors are those, and the Calidus are just doing actions and everything.
Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of a sense. And we talked earlier before this about like our different playstyles. I'm too aggressive. Like having played the game now for so long, I know I really ought to have just played orcs. Um, and you're like the exact opposite. Like you're probably the like teenage driver that everybody wanted to have on the road, and I was the teenage driver they did not want to have on the road. You know.
Yeah, I do get called a grandma driver by
Oh,
people
there
I
you go.
know, just because I am very careful.
Yeah. I just think that's very, very fascinating. But the up B downy can lend itself to both, styles of play
Mhm.
really, really well, which is pretty neat. Catron says he feels that NDK's melee is so much stronger than their shooting, so that he would overextend them by miles. Yeah, I feel that. Especially when death in the warp, like you give a normal Dread Knight, because you're gonna advance them like every turn, basically, right?
Yeah,
Because they
100%.
move so far, so 14 inches.
Hmm.
So you're gonna advance them, which means you for 1 CP you can death from the warp them, and now they're hitting on 2s with their ranged weapon and 2s with their melee, because it's not for the phase, it's for the rest of the turn.
Hmm.
So yeah, it is very tempting to just like YOLO swaggins them in like one after the other all the time and just lose them. So I feel that because you always want to have your things doing all the things that they're supposed to be doing every turn. It feels bad when they don't, even when
Yep.
that's the right decision. It still feels bad. So I
Agreed.
get you. Yeah, I get you. Um, it is interesting. I want to talk about Dread Knights for just a little bit, a little
Hmm.
segue before we get into your matchups. They're a hot topic right now because it turns out when you take a very mobile army with no shooting and you give it a unit that actually shoots pretty well, and let's be honest, Dread Knight shooting is not oppressive. On the data sheet, it's fine. Like it's
Hmm.
middling
Yep.
actually. Like there's no rerolls, there's no devastating wounds, there's no lethal hits,
Hmm.
there's sustained hits on the worst like weapon option, right? Like there's no indirect fire, and don't even get me started on that. But like the damage is middling. But when you combine it with our mobility, that means you're getting hit in the face with that middling like shooting for the whole game. And there's
Yep.
nothing you can do to stop it unless you're hiding like perfectly within the bottom floor of a ruin and I can't get a line right because you've screened me out. That's why
Hmm.
you're seeing a lot of those like tilt like 6 or 5 Dread Knight lists out there at the moment. Is because it turns out when you can pick them up, move them, reactively teleport them, do all that stuff, and then get that shooting where you need it every single time. It's really good. So I
Yep.
don't want to see them nerfed. But then they also took our army rule, gave it to Necrons, and then that just showed the entire world what Grey Knights would look like if their whole army had good shooting. And then you get Hypercrypt, right? So
Yep.
like I feel like I kind of feel like the Dread Knights are being treated like a boogeyman right now, and it's like stop looking at the big goofy dude in the robot suit and look at all the big goofy robots on the other table, you know? Like,
Yeah,
uh,
the Necrons are quite scary in that regard, where they just do have some pretty good shooting for that regard to teleport around, and similar where just like the Dread Knights have kind of like okay shooting, but it's more just the ability, like you're just saying, just to ability like pick 3 up or have the mobility to have 3 plus just focus fire. And that's
yeah,
what I did in a bunch of my games, just the ability to focus fire something just to make sure that that's dead. Because Grey Knights really like to play a 5 turn game or a 5 battle round game,
mm, yeah,
5 battle round game versus just like 3 or 4 kind of thing. So that's where my reserve type play kind of comes into play, where I'll just like, if you extend a little bit, try to get an objective, I'll just focus fire and then just sit back and then just sticky my other things, and I'll just kind of just play the long game where I have
yeah,
more stuff at the end to uppy downy.
yeah. Again, those are two different play styles than you and I play. I also play a lot of like beer garage hammer
Hmm.
and and then I have friends who also have kids, and like we take breaks to like deal with our kids, and so one game can take like 4.5 to 5 hours. So there's also that part. I want it over by turn 3, so it's over in 3 hours, not 4.5. But Logan's asking, what has been giving you more value, the good melee or the improved shooting profile?
Oh, that's a good question. I really like the hammers. Just the hammers with tank shock is just I think I use that almost every game, especially into anything T11 and up is typically where I use tank shock, where if it's under that, I think I typically have enough volume if Terminators are there to swing and just take it out. But
Yeah,
anytime like in two of my matchups, like Catan, I came across those and like need to use tank shock,
yeah,
and the hammers felt really good. But the side cannons when focus fire, because if you're firing all four into a target at 6 times 4, 20, 24, strength 10, AP2 ignores cover 3 damage shots, feels really nice when you get that many shots, and especially if one is buffed up from the Tech Marine, and then one if you need the CP, use Death from the War. So that's two of them hitting on 2s, the other are hitting on 3s. I think the
yeah.
melee ekes out a little bit, but the shooting feels like pretty close in terms of just like weighing them, of which has been more beneficial to me.
I mean, both profiles got a buff with that data slate,
Yeah.
right? So like everybody's like, "Oh, the hammer, what an awesome profile! Oh, you're hitting on 4s, boo!"
Yeah.
And then it, and then it was like, "Oh, the side cannon is -1 AP in a game where everyone has cover all the time,
Hmm.
so it's effectively AP 0." Like that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I wasn't expecting a nerf to or a buff to the Dread Knights, but like they just did those couple of tweaks and like they came out swinging, no pun
Yep.
intended. Yeah, I think it's both. Like it's the fact that they're in my games, like it's the fact that they can do both pretty well, right? Like they always
Mhm.
have to, even if you have one wound left, like you get off a charge, you can still tank shock for 16 dice that you're rolling
Yep.
for an average of like 5.8 mortal wounds. So like you're almost maxing out um tank shock every time you want to use it. Like so they're afraid
Exactly.
of you even on one wound because you just have to get in there and tank shock once,
Yep. Yeah, they're still so scary with just like they have 13 wounds, but it's like as soon as they like drop to 5, they're still just as effective with tank shock.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much like -1 to hit and things. It's like I don't care. I'm
Yep.
already bracketed. Like
Exactly.
you probably don't want to spend that CP. Looking at you, Eldar. Uh, all right. Well, let's get into your matchups. And remember, anyone, if you have questions at any time about anything, just jump in. Like you don't. It doesn't have to be about our specific topic that we're on at the moment. So I have some notes up here because I like to be a little prepared. Your
Hmm.
first game, you went into Canoptek Court Necrons.
Yes.
And this game, you won with 45 points, and he lost with 28,
Yeah.
which is impressive. So what the hell happened?
Um, I don't. As far as I understand, he was a super nice guy. He was just kind of coming back into the hobby, from my understanding. So it was a little bit of a slower game all around kind of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
I have a good friend of mine, Logan. He plays Necrons, and I get a lot of practice into playing against him. So I know the
Nice.
matchup. I know Court inside and out of just what he wants to do, what he will do, kind of thing. So, and his army was fantastically painted, but I was helping him out here and there with his rules. Like he thought the Matrix ability was like half the object, sorry, more than half the objectives. Where I'm just like, no, I'm pretty sure like it's half or more kind of things. Like, oh, you're right. And so it's just kind of like the rules were a little bit slow, but I was having fun. He was having fun, and within those 3 turns, I was able to just get like a lot of damage done because he just kind of pushed everything into the middle. I believe it was layout 4, which is the big death box in the middle, which
Yeah.
I like as Grey Knights, which is
Yeah.
fantastic for me. Um, So he kind of just pushed everything up into that. And Feel No Pains also can just, in like I was saying, just they can slow down the game quite a bit, especially just like with multi-damage stuff. So it just
Wraith
was
bricks.
a little bit slower. Yeah, Wraith Bricks. But so we only played till turn 3, which is why it was a low score in game.
Ah, okay. So he
Because
conceded or something?
it was diced down at that point because it was
Ah,
up
got it.
at the
Right.
3 hours. So it was like
Right.
I went to the judge. I was like, "Hey, we're still only on turn 3. What do you do?" He's like, "Just dice down." I was like, "Okay, we're dice down. I'm
Okay.
up. Like I'm okay with this." But if it did go to turn 5, which is like I mentioned before, Grey Knights love going to turn 5.
Yeah.
I at that point I had killed both the Void Dragon and the Nightbringer. Um, neutered one Wraith Brick to I think I did kill all of them but the Technomancer with it, and the other one I had just tied up with a Dread Knight just because the Wraiths just don't do anything into a Dread Knight once I pop armor True Silver.
Yeah.
But they're hitting on 4s, full rerolls, but then wounding
Um,
on 5s just doesn't do a whole lot.
I mean, the Wraiths are kind of like Squighog boys. Like,
Hmm.
Squighog boys will annihilate a vehicle. But, like, most other stuff that's not like an intercessor stat line, they just kind of don't die instead. That's
Yeah,
what they just, like, they can't kill you, but they also can't be
they're
killed
just
by you.
durable,
So,
and
yeah.
that's what Wraiths do is that they just have so much
Yeah.
OC on it. But my whole thing was I knew that going into the matchup, and he had infiltrated his one Wraithbrick onto one of the middle objectives because this was hidden supplies. So there's 2 objectives in the center in the death
Yeah.
box.
So it's 4 total in No Man's Land.
Yep, which
Yeah.
is a lot of objectives, but quite nice for me just because I have the mobility to get where I want to. So was it charged like whittled down the Wraith bricks, death box, grenaded and tank shock the Nightbringer. I think it was turn 2,
Okay.
and like just annihilated that. It did take tank shock, grenade, and I think I had 3 or 4 dread shooting into it, so it still took a lot to
Yeah.
actually bring it down because I knew that
Those,
I needed to bring it down because if it does live, that's a problem. That's a
I think
really big problem.
I think people in I think people in chat are well aware of the how ridiculous a tan can be.
Yep,
Like,
it's
and I don't know about you, but I swear like a 5-up feel no pain is a 4-up feel no pain with the amount of 5-ups that I see my opponents rolling, and it's like I'm playing an army without any. I mean,
yeah.
except against mortal wounds, specifically on like Drago's unit. It's like,
Mhm.
which that almost never comes up. You know?
No, very rarely.
Yeah, yeah. So the Legend Smith has another question. He says, semi unrelated. It seems like you dodged the pairings. So a little bit of shade, I guess. But have
Not
you
my
played?
intention.
Well, of course. I mean, you
But
can't
yeah.
dodge it by like, yeah, it's random. Well, mostly random.
Mhm.
But he's mainly asking actually, have you played into Death Guard or other indirect fire spam lists like Guard with their basilisks and what is it, the manticores?
Yeah, the manticores. I have
Yeah.
gone into guard before.
Yeah.
Um, indirect with long range is honestly pretty spooky. Um, I've just tried to play that matchup as if they can just kind of target anything that they want to, which they literally can. So it's just kind of I try to give them multiple targets and then just force them to make a decision. Whether it's good or bad for them, I don't know, but it's
Right.
just kind of forcing like, hey, I'm gonna sticky my home, gonna try to force sticky this, and I'll have a bunch of dreads like staging to try to do this, and then the Terminators are also gonna stage because that Manticores can kill Terminators pretty easily if they
Mhm.
use what was it Fields of Fire for the extra AP, which is really scary once that starts stacking up with like 2+ Manticores or Basilisks.
Yeah.
So
I
just kind of
no.
sorry, you go.
Oh no. I was making that face just because I was thinking about indirect fire, not because you accidentally interrupted me. No, the I don't like the idea of, from a game design standpoint, of any unit that ignores penalties from a powerful ability. Like that, I hated
Yeah,
Desolation Squads when they could come in a 10 mans and they cost like a soda pop. I
yep,
hated them in my Deathwatch. I didn't run them. You saw lots of like GT winning lists in like Deathwatch with 3 10 mans of Desolation Marines, and you're just like, this is stupid. This is not like this is not fun. This is not fun to play, and it is not fun to play into. So like I think it's is it the basilisk or is it the manticore that ignores? Because it's standing still, so it's ignoring the -1 to hit, and then it gets take aim, or it gets its buffs, and basically it gets enough AP to ignore the added AP from cover, and then it gets enough buffs to hit that it effectively ignores the hit penalties from indirect fire, which means why wouldn't you just take those?
Yeah.
Seems
like,
good.
The matchups that I remember, it was manticores. They were either hitting on 2s or 3s with reroll 1s from
with rerolls too.
And then like what was it? Take aim, fields of fire for the extra AP. So I either have to pop true silver to mitigate damage, or just kind of just take it.
It's a great thing that you just pointed out though. Like the strikes with sticky, it's like, okay, like I got a turn. This is sticky now, so yeah, you can kill them, but like it's still mine.
And that's specifically for the shooting matchups, where if I'm able to, if they want to like focus fire, then obviously that's my true silver target to try to make sure that they do live so that they can get sticky. Because if it's like full shooty, they sometimes don't have the mobility to go up to that objective if they haven't like already kind of figured out what you're trying to do. But because once you figure out, you're like, hey, like pre-measure their units to be like, hey, if they like roll in advance, cool, they can get to it. If not, then I'll try to be like, okay, now I'll try to force the sticky, force them to come out with some of their guns or their indirect fire. And if that happens, where even if I don't get the sticky off, I will purposely like stage the dreads into a position that, hey, you're probably going to want to try to kill this as best as possible. So I'll put my dreads in the best position as possible to move forward and take whatever wants to kill them, or just get to the middle and get to other positions that just benefit.
Yeah, and you're forcing like a decision too. You know, I could put the fire into those dread knights that are about to be in my lines on your next turn, or I can try to kill your strikes that for 1 CP are probably going to live. And then the legend does say, he says, you know, his strikes personally hate making 2-up saves.
It does happen where like, what was it? In the first game against Court, where I tied them up with 1 dread, and then I charged interceptors into them as well, just to get more OC on it, just to out OC him. I was like, I had three wraiths, fight 5 interceptors, and he's like, you're gonna do anything? I'm like, no, I think they'll be fine. Like, it's a 3-up save, I should be fine. And he picked up the whole squad, and I was like, wow, that was just 8 2s and 1s, and that's just the squad.
Yeah.
Like, that just happens sometimes.
I lost 4 Terminators in my game last night to a single D cannon. Oof. Because I rolled 1s and 2s for saves. And it's 3 damage, so just goodbye.
Yep.
My opponent was like, well, that's not math. And I'm like, no, that is not the math, is it?
I like to joke about with my one friend, the fallacy of the 4-up invuln, where it's just like, it's great if you make it.
It's a literal coin flip.
Yep.
Like,
yep.
That's what I told. The list I ran into was this Yunari list that had, and neither of us knew what the other like list was, but he took a ton of super high strength, super high AP D6 or D6 plus 2 damage guns. Just he had scourges, he had a lynx, he had a falcon, he had a whole bunch of stuff that he had those like Melta fire dragon dudes. He had a whole bunch of anti-tank just by accident, basically. And I'm like, well, this, like, after he told me his list, I'm like, well, this match is coming down to how many 4-up invuls I can make. Like, guaranteed. Because, like, these are going to kill Terminators, these are going to kill, like, Dread Knights. Like, you have a good profile into me, buddy. Yeah. So. Whew. Anyway, yeah, it was a wild game.
It hurts.
It does hurt. I mean, it is a dice game. Like the
Yeah.
dice, we all have stories where the dice have swung the other way too.
Mhm.
Like uh, in ninth, I had a single interceptor sergeant tank 3 obliterators for like 2 turns in melee. It shouldn't have ever happened, but it was just he was like, I'm gonna roll all 6s, and it was fantastic. But anyway,
That's awesome.
so round 1, nice guy.
Yep.
Like you guys play a little slow. That's why you had a 42. The next game must have finished because you went into Dark Angels playing Vanguard, which
Yep.
is interesting. 97. You so you almost blew him out, and then
Mhm.
to 72. So how did that one go?
That one went pretty well in terms of scoring. It's kind of similar idea where it's just like there's sticky home because I keep on forgetting because this was Scrambler Fields, which is one of the #1 reasons going into this tournament why I brought
Boo.
interceptors for their move shoot move.
Yeah.
Because I don't like Scrambler Fields. I don't think any Grey Knight player likes Scrambler Fields.
No.
It's definitely a lot
Can
easier
confirm.
with interceptors and dreads just because they're fast.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he had what, a 10-man squad of Hellblasters with Azrael and a lieutenant, which was kind of very spooky, and then 6 Centurions. Those were the biggest things I was worried about
Yeah.
because I don't like getting shot at
No.
just
Not
because I
with
don't want
plasma.
to no, and just like the amount of stuff that I have, like okay, the other stuff I do want to kill those things because those are fast. Because he had 2 assault jump pack squads, and then had I think 1 or 2 scout squads, and then an infiltrator squad holding his backfield, which like Space Marines more often than not bring infiltrators, and
Yeah.
that's just what it is.
Yeah. Which is
Interceptors
also
though.
what are really, yeah, I was just about to say, like, what's
Mhm.
really good into those guys is interceptors, because they will grab them by the belt buckle and they will tune them the fuck up.
Yep, they'll just like zoom forward, and then just even if they don't necessarily kill them, you can set them up in a position to actually get to them. And
Yeah.
especially with the speed of the interceptor, you can more often than not, at least in the matchups that I played, like they don't have the speed to get to your interceptors in their backline where you want them. So there's just like, unless they have stuff in reserves, but besides that, it's like
Yeah.
they
I
don't.
mean, Vanguard's pretty tricky too.
Mhm.
They're like Grey Knight light.
Yeah, they can be really mean in Ultramarines, and I have been on the receiving end of that from a friend of mine, Castra. He's very very lethal with his Ultramarines, and it's horrifying every time.
Oh yeah, man. I remember
Um,
in ninth, like Devastators and Shirans were a joke. Like folks would see them in like your display cabinet and be like, "Why did you even build these?" And now they're pretty good.
yep. Yeah, they're like super slow, but Vanguard helps mitigate that quite a bit.
Yeah.
Um, what did I do for this mission again? I remember I go first? I think I went second. I have my notes here, 1 second. Turn
No
game
problem, man.
1.
No rush. It's
I
a
went second on the ritual.
long, complicated game, so you know.
I know, trying to trying to recap all 6 of the games and how everything went. I was like, oh right, I was just kind of clean slate every game, just be like, okay, refresh mind, go back in.
Yeah, it's
So
good.
I went second. I picked up, I think it was 1 Dread, the Calvis, and the Terminators, and I was trying to get angles. I really wanted to turn, if I can, and if they give me a good target, I really like to turn 1 charge Keller Drago and his squad.
Okay.
Just because as soon as you're able to start tying up their shooting, which
Yeah.
there was an angle I probably could have gotten, but it was into Deathwing Knights and the Hellblasters, and I believe he had screened me out to the point that I just had to make like a 10-inch charge, -3, 7, and then with a reroll that gets
Right.
to like I think 82%.
It's 92%
And
actually.
it's 92
Oh,
for the
for
6-inch, but
6 inch. Yeah, yeah.
because
Gotcha.
of how he had
Right.
screened me out, I just
I gotcha.
couldn't get that close. And so I just felt like, okay, I want to try to keep the Terminators alive as long as possible in this matchup because I'm bottom of turn, which gives me end turn scoring. So if I can eliminate some of his scoring pieces, force him to come to me, I'm okay with this, and that's kind of what I did. I dropped the Calidus in the middle for area denial. Set up a dread behind the little death box there, did a ritual with him. A little bit of my own mistake, but I moved my strikes up to sticky. The ritual objective, or to start the sticky for the next turn.
Mm-hmm.
But I just did bad pre-measuring, and they were just out of it, so I didn't get to sticky that.
Oh
And
no!
he almost took me off of that objective, but I had my Grandmaster on another side get some pot shots to take out more of his assault jump pack dudes.
Mm-hmm.
And then he decided to shoot at it because he's like, I have to pop sigil or something at some point. So I just moved my dread Grandmaster back to the middle on that objective just because he brought down, what was it, Plasma Inceptors and one other thing to shoot at that dread. Brought it down to 1 wound, which, like, if it had died, I would have been okay because like I said, I just dropped the Grandmaster to reinforce that objective. But that living feels like, also we talked about dreads on just like 1 to 5 wounds. They're still very scary with what they can do and just shoot, where it's just like you have just so much to focus fire, which feels really nice. And then it was just back and forth where I don't think I actually ever used Drago's +3 that game, just because he kept throwing stuff to the middle and I had the Terminators there to always be available because I had staged them behind the ruins to be able to get to the middle.
Yeah.
So they're just in a position that I was like, I'm comfortable here contesting the middle. I have far more OC than he did.
Yeah.
32 OC with
32, baby.
And the character is just feels fantastic when you're able to get onto the objective and just force them to either do nothing or try to kill it, and then if they can't, you bring a model back, and then you get to do mean things.
I've heard stories where like people are playing the like Norn Emissary who are like 15 OC on their chosen objective or something like that. I'm probably getting the specific rules wrong, but it's like I don't care.
Yeah,
I've surrounded you with Terminators.
Yep.
Like I have double your OC, buddy.
Well, it's really funny. I have the banner and the apothecary, and like Calder just like 2 or 3 guys, and they're like, "How much OC is that?" I was like, "That's 9. That's 9 OC from 3 guys just on the objective." They're like, "Oh,
yeah," and they're like, "What?"
Okay.
Also, if you battle shock me, it's still 3 OC.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, the OC, like, we're one of 2 armies that have battle line Terminators, and I think we're the only ones that get a +1 OC on them.
Yes, at least like just innately as a unit upgrade.
Right. Yeah. Which of course we're taking because it's free war. It's free war gear.
It's the addition of free war gear.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah. So your turn 2, you kind of. Oh, actually, I did want to ask. So there are units in the game that when you fire at them, they get to just fire back, right? The Wraith Guard can do it. I almost said Wraith Blade, which I knew was wrong, but I almost said it anyway. And then Hellblasters can do it if they roll like a 4-up or a 3-up or something.
After they die,
yeah. After they die. So are you trying to do that cheeky thing where like I can only see 1 Hellblaster, but now I can target the unit, and that way when they fire, like if he pulls that unit, that one model. I mean, you don't want to like trundle a Dread Knight up and see all 10 of them and then start laying waste, because then you're gonna take a lot of plasma shots back. Yeah. So
I actually, because I have that many dreads that can kind of focus fire that to a degree, he played pretty careful with his Hellblasters back, because he has no way to bring them back or anything. So because he played them so far back, and he had an angle, he was like kind of on one side of the death box, where if he pushed this way, he would have an angle, but if he wanted to go the other way, it would take him like 2 or 3 turns to be able to get an angle at that angle.
Right.
So that's where I kind of like pushed most of my resources into that.
That's smart.
Yeah. I kind of just ignored the unit for most of the game. Honestly.
For anybody listening, if you see a 10-man Hellblaster brick, they're unless you're playing like what was it, unyielding swarm nids or something, like it hurts. That is I watched a game on War Games Live where a Ultramarine player with the same like setup, obviously not Azrael, was able to kill a Bane Blade or a
Mm-hmm.
Dorn on turn one because it was like lethal hits, crit 5 plus, oathed it, so it gets full rerolls, fish for those hits, those like lethals. It was wild.
Yep.
I think some
It's
other units did a little bit of damage, but it's primarily just straight up murdered by this unit of Hellblasters.
yeah,
Because yeah,
they do work.
yeah. So if you haven't faced them yet and you ever do, they're really scary. And then even if you think you get the jump on them, they get to shoot for free if they die. For
Mhm.
for on a 4-up or something. Like they have to
I
roll
believe
per
it's
model, right?
yeah, it's a 3-up.
Yeah. Anyway, so you can still end up taking that fire back even if they're dead.
Mhm.
So
It's quite scary, yeah. And I think that's what he did into my dreads is that he would just purposely overcharge, try to kill 2 or 3 of his guys just so they could shoot again to really
oh yeah, I
shoot my
forgot that
dreads down.
they can do that way too. It's not even
Yep.
just if they get killed by enemy fire; it's if they blow
Nope.
themselves up. They can
It's just if they
potentially
die.
shoot
Yeah.
again. Yeah. Whew,
It hurts.
gnarly. Yeah. So then your last game of day one,
Uh-huh.
you went into Drukhari, who was piloted by JT McDowell from PlayOn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us about that one.
Super. I mean, at this point, everybody there was super awesome and super
Mhm.
nice. We were both pretty pretty tired after to round 3, where it's just like we've just played a bunch of games and we're just like, oh boy,
That third game is a doozy.
it really is. He's pretty tired and I'm pretty like I'm starting to feel it a little bit, and honestly, that's probably like going into this tournament. That was the biggest thing for me is like mental and like physical preparation in terms of just like I had like what was it, like 3 or 4 liters of water. One of the waters had like an electrolyte pack in it, and then another had creatine. Just to
That-
actually just like
yeah.
just be mentally there the whole time. And it actually like as much as I was tired, I was definitely like in it.
No,
All
these are
6
all
games.
great. These are great. Like folks ask me that question, like, what do I bring? And I'm like, wear comfy shoes.
Yep.
If a chair is available, use it. I know
Yep.
you feel like a big man and you're super strong, but you standing and leaning over stuff for 9 hours is not fun. Bring snacks. Like I always have like little
Mhm.
like almond snack packs in my box because sometimes you can't make it to lunch. So you got to have that like 600 calorie, you know, healthy snack. Drink tons of water, even if it means you got to go pee. Because if you're playing against somebody you don't trust, like, why are you playing this game, right? um, yeah. But shoes, that's a big one. I do love the electrolyte package thing. That's a good, like, I'm going to add that to my list. I think I get that from the almonds, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I
But,
don't know all the nutritional values of
Yeah,
all
I
the
don't-
things.
I
I was just told like, hey, here's an electrolyte pack if you're going for a long day. I was like, cool, I'll take it to heart.
Not a
kind of
doctor.
thing. Yeah, same here.
Yeah. So how was that match, man? Like he always seems so fun on those play on videos. So
yeah, he was an absolute hoot, and it was really funny and unfortunate because there were a few situations where the dice just were not in his favor, and we both
Yeah.
just had good laughs and that, and that's just how it is sometimes, like both ways. Drukhari are an easier matchup for Grey Knights. It's not a
yeah,
guaranteed just because JT has played a lot, and I think he's what I think of 6-ish months ago he took Yanari and like won a local GT where I'm from. So like he's
Mhm.
a good player
Yeah,
and like knows
yeah.
what he's doing. And there's just a few things. What I got, what first turn, he forward deployed some mandrakes. I had set up interceptors to push the middle if I needed to, and the mandrakes were just close enough. And it was risky, but also I think worth it. Where I needed to make a 7-inch charge, failed
Mhm.
it, and then I CP rerolled it, which that's always a little bit
Yeah.
spooky first turn. But I'm like, I need to start taking away his low scoring pieces because as much as we're good at killing Drukhari, they just still have a lot of stuff.
Yep.
I tried to start taking out some of his stuff early. I felt like I kind of had to do that to a degree. So re-rolled, made the charge, killed the mandrakes, consolidated the guys onto the middle objective. So now he has to do something about the
Yeah.
interceptors. Dread bottom, dread top. So I got on pretty much all the objectives, kind of forcing him, pulling him in a lot of different directions. Pain tokens can be quite scary for just like the amount of rerolls and stuff that they can do. And this is where it's unfortunate, but he moved all his stuff because I think he spent a CP and I spent a CP because I spent the CP for the charge. So we were both pretty stretched thin for CP in this game just because I was forcing him to make decisions to do stuff. He was hopping out of transports because Drukhari can hop out of transports and charge after they've moved.
Oh, for 1 CP, yeah.
Yep.
Which is real good. And it doesn't trigger mists.
Nope, it does not, which is the tough part. But the unfortunate part is that and this is sometimes where like mist is super good to put stuff back up, but I also like trying to utilize just the 6-inch move.
Yes.
Just when to use that. So like he moved witches down to my bottom dread. And I didn't pick him up because I was like, I want this objective. I have dread staged up behind, so if he does kill it or get to it, I have something to back it up. So I just put it off to the side to make it like an 8 or a 9-inch charge, which forced him to use a pain token for the reroll charge because he has no CP left, and he has, I think he spent 1 or 2 in the shooting phase. So this was his either last, or he was just like, hey, this is what I'll use for my pain tokens because you have to declare it at the top of the phase. He makes the 8 or 9-inch charge with the reroll. So I was like, okay, that's just how that is, kind of thing. And this was again unfortunate. He hopped out with his Archon, the court squad, into the other dread squad, and that was the squad that he paid the CP to charge, and it was a 5-inch charge. He has no more CP.
Dread squad?
Oh, sorry, my dread knight at the top.
Oh, okay, all right. I was like, is it a strike squad or a dread knight?
Sorry, just the dread. And he fails the 5-inch charge, which is just really bad in that case because suddenly the court squad, which is, I don't know how many points it is, but it's just a lot of stuff out in the open, and he has no way to be reactionary with it. So it's like following turn, I pick up Terminators, I 3-inch onto that objective and just shoot them dead. Just with
that's a matchup where like Stormbolters feel really good.
Yes, it feels fantastic.
Yeah, I've only played one Drukhari matchup with my Grey Knights in 10th, and it's against a person who kind of got me into the hobby. And all through 9th, I didn't win a single game against Drukhari with either Deathwatch or Grey Knights. The entire edition. In RTTs and GTs and friendly games, whatever, I never beat them. They were so good, and just I was like pounding my head on the wall. So I smoked him. I don't like all my teenage angst came out. Like I was moving up Dread Knights. I was popping a transport with the Psy Cannon, then flaming out a whole unit with the flamer. It was a massacre. I tabled him like turn 3 or something. I don't know. I got mad. He was also playing he was trying some stuff out. He had like some Ravagers, 2 Raiders, like 4 Venom. He had a lot of transports, and I'm like, you don't even have that many. So he didn't have a lot of the little Griblies that. Well, I guess he did because all of those need a squad, but like, you know. I ignored the Lilith Witch squad entirely until I could just shoot it, because what is that, 44 attacks? She can do like 13 or something by herself. It's a lot. It's a lot.
The dread on the bottom objective was on the front end of that and managed to live with I think 1 or 2 wounds left.
How do you feel like going into their transports? Because I feel like without the improved shooting of the Dread Knight, I don't know how you play this matchup besides fighting out of your deployment zone for the whole time, you know?
The dreads do feel super nice into their transports just because that's just kind of like the perfect weapon, because you just need 4 shots to go through. So especially when you are able to just be like, hey, especially if you know which like ask your opponent like which dreads have like the incubi. The incubi are probably like the scariest threat that they have into Grey Knights. Witches are they're not really super scary. Lilith is scary, but the witches aren't super scary.
Yeah.
So just like popping that like that Raider or Venom with the incubi and the Archon is really like a thing, and we pop those pretty well. Like without that, it's probably just hope for librarians to pop the Raiders is what I imagine.
Yeah,
Kind of thing, which doesn't feel super fantastic, but it's just the next best thing.
It's what I like to use my librarians for in that matchup was, oh, that Raider lived with 1 wound, did it? Or you know, like now it's not going to. You know, get out.
They are nice for just doing that little.
That's
the
little dink, a little boop. That's what I was using them for, from what I can recall. But it felt real, like I felt almost kind of bad because it's like, yeah, I'm hitting on 2s, I'm wounding on 3s. That's exactly enough to get you to your 6-up invul. Oh yeah, it's 3 damage flat each. Oh, and it ignores cover.
Yeah.
So unless you spike 6s, that's a dead Raider. Yeah. And the Venoms are even easier to kill because they're only like 6 wounds, right? 6 or 7 or something.
They're 5 or 6 wounds.
Yeah.
They're super easy to pop. I do like, especially in this matchup, I like try to line up multiple transports if I'm able to. Just because the Sky Splinter detachment does have the 4-up invuln on a transport stratagem, which I believe you used a number of times just because the Dread's shooting can just absolutely obliterate Raiders. So then it was like, okay, 1 Dread does that, he pops it. It was like, okay, now I'm probably not going to shoot it unless I got a few wounds through. Then maybe I'll try to focus fire with the rest of them. Otherwise, I'll just go shoot into a Venom. And that's usually just what happened, where it's just pop the Venom, do this kind of thing. He was fantastic because he like ended up, what was it, 80 to 64. So he still scored like pretty up there because I only had I think like 2 or 3 Dreads and the Terminators and I think 1 or 2 strike squads left. But just Sights of Power, kind of tough when I'm able to kill his characters. Talking about dice being dice sometimes, his Archon squad with the Court and the Cobwhites in there, I wiped the squad from the Khaldor Drago shooting. Oh, what was it? The Void Shield? I can't remember what the Archon shield for the 2-up invuln.
The 2-up invul.
He made, we ended up counting it out because it got to a ridiculous number. He made 28 2-up saves.
Yep.
And I was like, huh, this is hilarious. Like I'm in a good position to win this, but this was just hilarious. Just like hindsight, I realized I could have grenaded him with Terminators, but I don't know if that would have been right. Also, I just wanted to save the CP for other things at that time. Where it's like I was just saying, who was it? I can't remember. I almost always use CP if it's for victory points, where it's like there's always the temptation
CP for
where
VP.
where it's like you're like, oh, I would like to save this Dread kind of thing, and I would like to CP reroll his armor saver, the 4-up info. It's like, but does this actually score me points? If it doesn't, you just gotta leave it, drop it. Like I've never rerolled any shots or anything for any of my guns in any of my games, just because that's almost never worth it, especially because we are pretty CP hungry for Miss, True Silver, Prognosticated Rival. It's like I imagine just I don't have rerolls because
it turns out that 5 out of our 6 stratagems are pretty good.
Agreed.
One of them is complete garbage.
I'm pretty sure I know which one that is. Now I'm trying to remember all 6 off the top of my head.
Haloed and Soulfire is the worst one, and it's just because if you could proactively use it for 1 CP and then reactively use it for 2 CP, like, you know, I'm targeting that squad, and then you're like, all right, well, I'm spending 2 CP, so you, like, if you're not within 12, you can't target it. That would be awesome. That would be, I mean, I know other armies get it for 1, like Gene Stealer Colts, I think, but like you can't give everybody all the tools and then everybody plays the same army, you know? So like it would be neat if you got the choice. Like, I'm gonna move up here, I'm gonna leave my Dread kind of hanging out, but I'm gonna spend 1 CP to maybe save his life.
Mhm.
But you can't do that. You have to do it
Yeah.
proactively in your movement phase, and it has to be 2 CP,
Yeah,
which is impossible for us to really
yeah,
take.
I've used it I think once, not at that tournament, but just
Mm,
once in a game, but I've never looked at it since kind of thing.
yeah.
There's like maybe the rare chance that it could pop up as something that's useful, but more often than not, you need that 2 CP for other things. Like 99% of cases, you need that CP for other things.
I use it, yeah, I've used it once. It was my first game of 10th, and I misread it, and I use it reactively when a strike squad was targeted by a like Redemptor Dreadnought, I think it was.
Mm.
I was playing Dark Angels, or playing against them. And then, like, after the game, I'm like, whoops, wasn't supposed to do
Oh.
that way, but, game's kind of complicated, so,
Mhm.
yeah.
There's a lot of rules, too many, but at the same time,
And after that, I've never used it again.
yep.
Oh, that's not true. I actually did use it last night, because I went first, and I discarded one of my, so I had 3, and then on my next turn, I just move blocked myself, and I hung a strike squad out, and I didn't want him to die. Yeah. I guess I have used it once. Correctly. And once incorrectly. So, anything else about Drukhari? Like, I mean, JT's a great player. It's the end of the first day. You're really tired.
I think just like as much as they do have a lot of things, I typically, if I'm able to, just focus. I don't know if this is like correct for every army, but just because we have so much speed, I like to try to focus like their scoring pieces. So like he had 2 mandrakes. Like as soon as I'm able, which is why I CP rerolled that charge on the first turn, because mandrakes have uppy downy, and I don't want him scoring points because which like so as soon as I was able to kill both of those mandrakes, scourges eventually came down. I did make a mistake. I think it was turn 3 or 4. I had stickied my home and then moved off of it, but made sure that he couldn't drop within 9 inches of it. Just so I was like, okay, my strikes are safe. He can't move there. I'm safe, but then I forgot the scourges can drop and move
Fire and
onto
move.
it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I lost that objective. That's my own fault. But after that, they die to a stiff breeze because it's just a bunch of elves.
Yeah. T3 bodies.
Yep, it's they
Yeah.
Stormbolters love it.
Stormbolt do love. I mean, T3 like 1 wound models, man. Like nom nom nom
Yeah.
nom 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 nom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Like into orcs, man, Stormbolters feel real bad. Like sometimes you can get a wound or 2 through, but like into elves, you're just like skipping through a field of flowers. It's fantastic.
Agreed. 100%.
Yeah. So you said you drove home after the event. That means you had enough, like you lived close enough that you could go sleep in your own bed?
It was still an hour drive.
Oh.
Which what tournament ended 8 p.m. and then after I think I got home around like 10 p.m. or later, then just immediately to bed because next morning wake up at 7 to go up. So it was a very long tournament, but super duper fun.
So no hardcore partying afterwards?
No, I wanted my sleep. I like my sleep too much.
I after day 1 at LVO 2022, I was invited to go drinking with a bunch of the Art of War guys, and
Nice.
they party. Yeah, like they party. Yeah, it was fun. So day 2, you get up, you shower in your own shower, so you already smell better than 80% of the people that you're gonna play that day. And you go and you have to play Blood Angels. When I saw that, I was like, ooh, I know that's a gnarly matchup. But then I saw they were playing Ironstorm. Is it just because they can make their ball predators like even more bonkers in Ironstorm, or like what was his? Because at this point, right? Like you went undefeated through this tournament, so every single person you played, you were the first person to defeat them. So this Blood Angels Ironstorm list has to be good. It's gone 3-0, or lucky, right? Like,
Everything's a little bit of that
sure.
when, especially
Yeah.
on longer tournaments. But no, he was a fantastic player, super nice too. He lives on an island close to like on the west coast where I'm from. Um, no, he did change up his list a little bit for the GT, and I talked to him after the game. He said he kind of wishes that he hadn't made some of the decisions because he has had ball predators in his original list. In this list, he did not.
Yeah. Oh,
He
okay.
had
Interesting.
he had two Redemptors, two Ballistus Dreads, two what are the Deep Strike Denial guys? My brain is forgetting. Oh goodness. The 12-inch Deep Strike Deny guys. He had two squads of those.
Infiltrators.
Infiltrators. Wow,
Yeah.
I just could not remember off the
It's
top of my
dude,
head.
there's like intercessors, inceptors,
It
infiltrators,
was
like so
so
many
much.
I names, like
Uh,
whatever. That's good. We all knew what you meant when you
yeah.
said the deep strike deny guys.
Then he had three Tech Marines with three of the enhancements. The one to like drop a damage to 0, one for the lethal aura, and then one for I can't remember the other one. The advance and shoot aura. That's what it was. So pretty scary. A repulsor executioner as well.
Yeah, those things just have so many
Yep.
guns.
It's a lot of guns, but the mission definitely was pretty good in my favor because it was, I can't remember, it was the one where there's no center objective, and this was layout 1, if I recall correctly. So no center objective is really nice for me just because if I put anything in the center, he can just line up so much shooting.
hmm
Um,
I guess
here,
I could pull up. I can pull up your. That was
was
Travis
Mission O.
Grant. Oh, Mission O. Oh man,
Mission
I don't.
O, Vital
Usually,
Ground.
I have all this stuff out. So that's a
Battleground.
4 objective mission with nothing in the
Yep,
middle.
nothing in the middle.
Wow, that shows you how many tournaments I've gone to in 10th because I do not remember that. But okay, I
Yeah,
have a
because this
game
one
on
is.
Saturday. I'll probably just say let's play Vital Ground.
Yeah, because that one's what, 2 for your home, 5 VP for the middle no man's land objectives, and then 6 for your opponents.
Oh
So,
right. And
so
that's
this
the
one
one where
is.
like if you get like secure enemy uh outpost and you're like 14 points.
Yep,
I need it.
it's pretty juicy if you can get that.
Yeah.
Did I go? This was game 4. Game 4. I went first for this list, which I think is okay. Like, I typically like to go second if possible, but
Yeah.
now with Dreads and Interceptors, I feel a lot more comfortable going first because in this matchup, it's just staging. I just stage a bunch of stuff, and like we had talked about, because he has mostly shooting, and because I pre-measured like first turn, I scouted with the strikes near onto the top objective. He has nothing that can actually move onto the objective. He didn't. He kind of played pretty safe because Dreads can be fast and scary. Because
Yeah.
if he goes first, I can pick up Kaldor and just mess up the Ballistus or the Repulsor kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's just what I can do. So he played pretty far back, and in my opinion, a little too far back because I did have a lot of scary stuff. So then I just kind of played into that where I moved the strikes to the top objective, started to sticky it. He had a whirlwind.
I love the
Uh,
whirlwind. Poor
it's very cute,
poor things took a little bit of a little deep
just
on
a
the
little
nose.
bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he tries to kill the strikes on his turn and pop AOC because I'm like I need this sticky because if I sticky it, this is just puts me in a really favorable position because
Yeah.
like I took out the measurement and it's like it would have taken his Dreads 2 to 3 turns to get to that top objective just because of where they were placed. So as soon as I sticky it, it's too far from the edge for him to come into reserves. Because the one cute thing that he did have that I do like just as like a fun little tech piece, he had the Death Company Dreadnought,
Oh, is that the
which
one
is
that can like fight forever if it can keep
yep,
piling into stuff? Okay.
yep. As soon as
That is the
it gets hit and
funniest.
doesn't,
Yeah.
it's very very cute and I like it
Uh,
quite a bit. So yeah, I essentially just first turn I drew secure no man's land and I got cleanse. This was where it's like decision making for throwing stuff away can be difficult because I had the option to either spend a CP to get my interceptors onto the bottom objective, and because I drew secure and cleanse, so I could have done that with them and scored an extra 5 victory points for getting the max of both of those. I decided not to
Mm-hmm.
because he had 2 ballistic dreads. The repulsor executioner was also pretty close by there at that point, so I just kind of staged them behind the building. So I like pre-measured, and if he advanced the 1 ballistic dread and got like a 5 or a 6, and then advanced the tech marine for the other assault aura, he could shoot my squads. But it's 3 big anti-tank shots, which I'm fine
Yeah.
with him if he
you
wants to
lose,
get that far out.
And then he's just put those 2 pieces out so far that you're gonna scoop them up next turn. Yeah.
Yeah, so I staged that, and then his repulsor was kind of near the middle, and I staged the 1 dread because this is the layout 1 where it's like the 2 L's.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so I just hid 1 in my little pocket L just to be like, sweet. If you move too far forward, I'm gonna charge you tank shock and just be really mean.
Mm-hmm.
So he like decided to play pretty reserved. The biggest thing for me is just because it's the home objective is worth so much, and he has 2 things in reserves. He has interceptors and the Death Company dread. I usually, if I'm able to, if my opponent has something in reserves, I almost always keep the 1 strike squad at home, just to try to like deny them as long as they can. And as soon as all their reserves come down by turn 3, that strike squad is now my little action monkey doers. Just because if they don't have the movement to get to my home objective, now they suddenly are free reign to score me points.
And they have infinite movement.
Mm-hmm.
So
pretty
I
much.
mean, that's exactly what I did last night with one of my strike squads. Is they just sat there until he brought whatever, I don't know. Eldar units all look the same to me. That's my Death Watch player coming out there. But anyway, he had some deep strike like flamery thing. I don't remember what it was. And they dropped elsewhere, so I was like, haha, I'm free. Go score me points.
Yeah, they're very nice for that. And like besides the movement and whatnot, I just, like I mentioned, like I like to play more reserve, so I was like, I didn't overextend. I just wanted to sticky the thing, sit there. His turn, I think it's a tough choice what he did. He used the Calidus to score behind enemy lines and investigate. So that's 3 5 points that she scored, which I think is like pretty good. Problem there is that he does give me the Calidus, but it is 5 points that he wouldn't get otherwise. But I have more uppy downy than he has uppy downy. So as soon as he gives me something like that, like I still think it's relatively the right choice, maybe, but as soon as he gives me that, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna shoot this because I like eliminating my enemies scoring pieces as soon as I can.
No, that's fantastic. Like it's a game of points, right? And eighth was like, kill 1, kill more. But like this game's a lot more tactical now. And so like into Eldar, I usually kill the bikes as fast as I can. Anything that can move, anything that can auto advance 6 or whatever. I'm like, nope, that gets to die.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. So I feel you. And it's the same way into us too. Like I'm sure opponents are looking at our strike squads and our interceptors, and they're like, those have to die. Because the sticky on the strikes and just the movement of the interceptors is gnarly. So,
and that's also why I like this list in particular. Just like the dreads and the terminators, just kind of in the face. They're like, those are the scary stuff that kills me stuff, and they're correct. It does. But I like to do my scoring with the strikes and the interceptors, which I do quite a bit. Like, what was it? On his turn, he moves his scouts to hold that objective, which makes sense, but I have my interceptors right there to contest it, and that's 5 OC versus 5 OC. Like, I can kill scouts quite easily. I do exactly that. I deny him 5 victory points. He has nothing to move towards the top objective. And I essentially do that for I think 2 or 3 turns where just he doesn't have enough movement to get to that top objective, so I'm just holding it kind of indefinitely. He could have advanced it and just kept like sent one Redemptor up there, but because I knew that he could do that if he really wanted to boost the speed if I move away, I kept the Terminators just in that little L and another Dread back there as well. So if he did move up, I just wall up it kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean we've always been able to do things like that with like Gate of Infinity. You know, like in ninth, you could put a threat, even if it's just a middling one or a scoring unit behind, like in their deployment zone, and then they have to decide like how many resources am I going to send back to take care of that, because they don't have the mobility we do, right? So like if you get an interceptor squad back there, or you know 3-inch deep strike, shoot, and then scoot onto an objective, and they turn around with a Redemptor to come deal with you, you know, that's great.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. The Redemptor is
happy.
now not where he wanted it. He's stomping 185 points back up to like deal with, you know, my interceptors. That's like 2 or 3 turns it's not in the game, basically. Like that's
Exactly.
fine. You do that.
Yeah.
And then if he gets close, you know, you could miss him, or you could just, you know, maybe you don't even get shot, like he can't get a line on you, and the next turn you just move 24 inches.
Exactly. It's fantastic to be able to do that, and like it's
with fly, so they can't move block. They can't move block you.
Very, very zoom, which is so much fun.
Yeah.
The what was it? And I think turn 3 he finally started to move the Repulsor Executioner up, because he played pretty reserved with it, because I told him about the Dread stats, and he's like, oh, that's kind of scary. I'm like, yeah, no, they can do work into a Repulsor. And that's exactly what happened, where he had kept it so far back, but then that Dread that I had staged in the L, where he eventually was trying to move it forward to be able to actually shoot stuff, I moved my 14. And this is where the grenade strat is fun too, where it's like you can fall back and still grenade. That Interceptor that had killed the strikes, I tagged his Ballistas Dreadnought, so it just couldn't do as much shooting or as effective shooting. He eventually whittled them down to one guy, but that one guy with 1 wound was able to fall back and be within 8 inches of the Repulsor Executioner, and then just grenade it, and then the Dread comes over.
Or something.
And the Dread comes in, makes a 7-inch charge, tank shock for a total of 10 mortal wounds to that Repulsor Executioner, and then just bonks it for I think got 2 wounds through out of the 3 hits, and then he fails both of them for like 8 or 11 damage. I'm like, all right,
I just pulled up the Repulsor Executioner's data sheet on Wahapedia because I wasn't sure what it was. So T12, 16 wounds. So you're looking at effectively the new Land Raider, you know, at that point. So that's pretty cool, man. Like those are always the things that worry me, is like, how am I mean, less so now because of the Dread Knights, but like, how am I going to deal with anything? I mean, before Dread Knights, it's how am I going to deal with anything T7 or higher?
Yeah. That was it before. Where,
Now it's like, at least we have some tricks. It costs CP, unfortunately. You know, 2 if you want to do that like wombo combo. But yeah, pretty fun. I don't know why I just thought about this, but the whole move blocking thing. I know people look at the teleport strike force and they're like, "Oh, these army rules aren't that like great." And you know, if you complain, or if you compare it to like Sons of Sanguinius, where on the charge you get +2 strength and +1 attack, and you're like, "Oh wow, that's insane." Like yeah, it isn't, but when you consider the fact it's like you can't move block that whole army. You can't move block our Terminators. You can't move block our Power Army. You can't move block our Dread Knights. We just fly over you. I mean, you can move block the Dread Knights because that base is insanely large, but like, you know, you can't do it with like screening out like some chaff, you know. You can't stick out like difficult. Yeah, you can't stick out like some gene stealers in a conga line and stop me from going where I want to go. Like I auto advance 6 and I don't even gain the fly keyword. It's worded very weird. So like some people think like, oh, then I can like overwatch with my anti-fly, and it's like, well, no, because I don't gain the fly keyword. It's I move as if I have fly, but it doesn't
Yeah,
say you
it's
gain the fly
weird.
keyword. It's very weird. So it's actually like it's legit pretty strong. It's just not obviously strong.
Hmm.
Um,
And
especially
that's
when you have a data slate that automatically or that can and, and shoot and charge and fall back and charge and shoot like when you advance and then you automatically get the full advance. That's pretty
yeah,
cool.
the dreads with that are fantastic, and I just like just not having to worry about, especially just because I like to stage with either the dreads or just interceptors and strikes, and just automatically going 12 or 18 inches,
Mm-hmm.
and not having to worry about, okay, I need to like go this far on a with my advanced roll, then I can set up for this. I just don't know. I just go 18, don't have to worry about that, and then
Yep.
set up for the next turn if they give me something kind of thing. I quite like it.
Yeah.
Didn't like it
Agreed.
at first, but definitely getting around to it.
It feels underwhelming. I mean, especially when the Dread Knights were bad. It's like,
Yes.
oh, you brought. I went into guard. You brought 6 Lehman Russes. Well,
Yeah.
what do I do? uh, but
Yeah.
thankfully, we have something now. Um,
Mhm.
so, anything else about the Blood Angels that was compelling at all? It sounded
Um,
like a pretty interesting list, and the guy thought things through, and he had his little combos all like set up and stuff.
yeah, like he was a good player, and like I think it was just that bit of because he had just has to walk at me, and with me just because what I scored 28 on the primary, which is just 4 turns of 7, and he scored 18, so I denied him 2 turns of his 5 points, so it's 10 down there, and then once I took out the Caldus, like he just doesn't have the secondary scoring to be able to keep up with me just holding 7 a turn, so it's like I am in a good position there. Took out the repulsor, and then I got a little bit lucky. I shot I think 2 dreads into one of his redemptors, and then Caldard got to charge it, and it was just I did kill it, which like usually it doesn't. 10 Terminators with -1 damage aren't super great at dreads. I did Vect Armor Contempt because like we talked about,
Yeah,
Armor
yeah.
Contempt is kind of spooky for our only AP2 damage or AP2 melee for just our regular dudes.
Mm-hmm.
So managed to get
AP1
it
for
pretty
a
well.
librarian for reasons.
Yeah, he's thinking really hard, I suppose, to focus on his melee. But yeah, other than that, just great opponent. I just was scoring my points and just denying him as much points as I was able to.
Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not too
it's
much to say besides that. It was like fun, good opponent.
yeah. No,
Vehicles are scary, but
yeah. I think that's implied. Like I'm not trying to make it seem like you're like, oh, it was easy. I knew I was gonna win from the get go or something like that. Like um, some games are just like the game happened.
hmm
Like that's it,
yeah, it
and
do
that's
be like
okay.
that.
So the next one was this one made me
Yes.
sad because this is another Grey Knight player. So spoiler, this is the mirror. This is another Grey Knight player that made it through 4 rounds undefeated,
hmm
and you had to knock him out.
Yeah.
So thank you for lowering our win rate, I
I
guess.
suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose.
I'm still
Knock
not
him
sure.
out.
Does Games Workshop take mirrors into account, or do they remove it because it would be intelligent to remove it mathematically?
I don't know if there's any official
Yeah.
thing on that.
Yeah.
I don't I don't know, but
Uh, yeah. Whatever. We're not Games Workshop
no.
or doctors. Yeah. So I made a post in the competitive Grey Knight Facebook group to be like, "Hey guys, come watch this shit."
Mhm.
And like almost immediately, your opponent, your Grey Knight,
David?
opponent, yeah, he responded and he's like, He's a great opponent. He completely outplayed me. He won fair and square. It was awesome. So, uh,
That feels really
kudos
good.
to you.
No, he was fantastic and really fun to play against, and really good, a good player. There was definitely some instances where I like made some better choices, and unfortunately in the mirror, and I think this was just like unfortunate, where one of my favorite units, Purifiers, with Castell and Crow, fantastic
Oh,
into the
yeah.
matchups that they are fantastic into. There's some matchups that are just really bad, and the mirror just happens to be one of them.
Especially if, again, you go into a list that has librarians
Hmm.
and they, it's like anti-infantry 2+. I got a 4 up Field of Pain.
Yeah,
Anyway,
and it's
I know you didn't
yeah,
have librarians, but
no,
it's just,
but
yeah.
it was just kind of a little rough there. Where I saw that, I'm like, this is not a unit I worry about, which is good from my perspective, where it's like I can rest easy in that regard, but I still have to be careful because it was actually like pretty similar, where he had he had Brother Captain Stern instead of the Calidus. And then he had 4 dreads similar to me, and then he has the Grandmaster with Sigil and 10 Paladins instead of Kaldor, which this is why I like Kaldor. Is like I mentioned earlier, I don't know how to use Paladins super effectively because I love getting stuck in melee, and
Yeah.
that +3 to charge really helps get through some of those matchups where you kind of want or need to get into melee.
What if I told you that you could put Kaldor in with paladins?
It's something I've looked
I
at before.
no, it's not worth it. You
It's
lose
not
the
just
lethal
because of the
hits.
lethals, which
Yeah,
is that's the biggest thing.
yeah.
Um, but this was definitely scary as well because he got second. I went first here. So this is definitely like oh, okay, he knows my list, I know his list, so we're just
Yeah.
kind of like, okay, how's this gonna go? Let me just quickly check. It was like a tight game till the very last. This is
It was
Scorched
77
Earth.
to 60.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Scorched Earth, and he essentially gave me, or let me have, well, not let me, but just like stayed away from my top objective because I think I had 2 dreads there, a strike squad that was starting the sticky on there, and then I stickied my home. I moved a dread onto there because he can uppy downy. He has 4 dreads, so I'm just like getting ready. One of his grandmaster has in dread armor has first to the fray,
Oh, cool.
so he could come down. So
Yeah.
um,
Neat tech choice.
I think first to the fray is definitely quite good because there's definitely some times where first turn scoring is quite difficult for Grey Knights if they go first, and first to the fray helps quite a bit with that.
Yeah.
It is just kind of expensive
Agreed.
for what we have.
At the
So
same
I
time, sometimes you're building a list and you're like, what do I do with these 30 points? Or sorry, I guess it's 35.
35.
But like you're like, oh, I can upgrade some Terminators to Paladins, but I don't really want to, you know.
Hmm.
So guess I'll take first in the fray. I already have Sigil on something because that's the one you always take, right?
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep. What was it? Yeah, it was pretty much just like general game plan. I just staged some stuff in case he wanted to move forward. I can't remember. I think I did move onto the middle objective. I I can't remember if I did. I'll have to. I didn't get any pictures of the last 2 because at that point I was like, oh, I'm 4-0. Oh, we're here. We're going. This is kind
it's
of getting real.
it's game time.
So I just kind of staged a little bit, and then I just kept the Terminators hidden because the Terminators. So looking into this matchup, the scariest thing for me are his dreads because his dreads are the things that can just kill everything else.
Yep.
The Paladins, as scary as they are, aren't like they can kill dreads, but they're not super fantastic into dreads. Uh, as others stuff is like sure if I have like he does ignore modifiers, so true silver just doesn't matter there, but like I said, he has to either prognosticate it or come in from reserves or sigil 12 inches away kind of thing for my units to be able to get into melee comfortably and to like start making an impact right away.
Mhm.
And he kept his Terminators on his home objective, which like makes sense. I can uppy downy as well, so he just my whole idea was as soon as he takes those Terminators away, I need to pressure his home objective. And because the Terminators want to do something, they have to do something because this is like I only have so many resources. He only has so many resources. He came down, I think, with all 4 dreads in the corner of my deployment, bottom of 2, and he kills my 1 interceptor squad, and then I true silver my strike squad on my home objective because he tries to shoot them off, which I think like taking them out is a good idea. I didn't give him the other dreads to shoot because they were hidden behind the building. He doesn't manage to kill the strikes, so I think I only have 2 strikes left.
Mm-hmm.
What
One
else
of
did I
them can
do?
still sticky
Yep.
all
So
by
so
himself.
they're quite. I'm quite content that they're just there. And so I pick up what was it? Pick up Terminators. I pick up I think my other strike squad. I keep the 2-man strike squad on the objective because again he can 3-inch deep strike, so I'm gonna move them to try to deny the 3-inch deep strike because it's a good idea now that my home objective has been whittled down a little bit. He has more room to drop in paladins,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what he did. And then I got what bring it down and secure was it? Where am I looking?
Secure no man's is you get 2 for holding 1, 3 or 5 for holding 2 in no man's
Right.
land,
Oh,
right?
this was a mistake on my part. I got defend and bring it down. So I'll get to the mistake in a second. So I bring down Caldor Drago 9 inches away from 2 of his dreads because he brought 1 down by his home objective and then the 3 to shoot at my stuff. Caldor Drago can, with his boys, can pick up a dread relatively easy. I haven't looked at the math in a bit, but like that's just a lot of attacks, and I don't think he had the CP for True Silver at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I dropped down my Grandmaster 9 inches away from his other dread, and I positioned it specifically where if because they're like close to my home objective, I positioned it so if I don't make the 9-inch charge, his dread just has to go awkwardly around the Grandmaster to get onto my home objective and to try to stop like that 3-inch denial or 3-inch deep strike, just to make it really annoying for him to get there. So if he failed it, he can't make the 3-inch, but then if he does, I think I'm okay with that kind of thing. But I managed to make the 9-inch charge with the Grandmaster, pop full rerolls into his dread, kill the dread, Caldor Drago, also killed the top dread, so that's 7 points for bring it down.
Yeah.
This was a tough one where, because he heroically intervened with purifiers into the Terminators, which I think at this stage probably wasn't the best choice, just because the purifiers can do some damage to Terminators, but I think just because I just took out 2 of his dreads, or like I had the option to take out 2 of his dreads, that's just one more thing that he can't uppy downy. That's not going to do damage otherwise if it's in melee, which
or score.
Yeah, exactly. And because I did pop True Silver because I was like, I don't want to take a bunch of damage from these guys, but for the rest of the game, I think it was for 3 or 4 more turns. It was just a back and forth of his purifiers killing 1 to 2 Terminators. I bring it back next turn. Pro doing some damage into Caldor, which I was fine with because Caldor's made his plus 3-inch charge for the game. He's good to just he's good to go back to the warp at this point.
Thanks, buddy. See you later.
You've done your job. And this is where I messed up a little bit, where I wanted to. I should have put more forethought into it, because I kept Defense Stronghold, which was the bad choice. Because now that I've kept it, he has agency to get there. I didn't move the strikes far up enough to block the 3-inch deny completely. And the Grandmaster made his 9-inch charge, leaving it a little bit open, so he was able to get back there and then use Paladins to 3-inch there. And I was like, huh, I've made a little bit of a doozy because I have to keep it till next turn to scrap it for next
Right.
turn.
Yep.
Which was the rough part there.
Yeah, Defense Stronghold is frequently misplayed because it doesn't do what the rest of them do. So if you play a couple games, you never pull that one, or it's real easy to be like, oh, I just have to hold this at the end of the battle round. Well, I went second, so I'm just going to score this for 3, and there's nothing you can do. And it's like, well, did you read the last paragraph?
Yeah, gives them some agency to stop it if they can.
Yeah. But it also means, again, like kind of like you said, if you draw and you already don't hold, you draw it like later in the game, you don't hold your stronghold. It's like, oh no.
Yeah.
I can't even get rid of this. I have to hold on to it for the whole next round, or until the next round.
Yeah, it can. It definitely was like that's a silly mistake that I made. It's 5th game though, so it's like
you're brain dead.
We're kind of just getting up to the cusp of being quite tired. And then it just kind of went just back and forth where there was just some instances of like I rolled hot on my 4-ups where it's just like I popped like I killed 2 dreads and then tied up, and then the purifiers were tied up on turn 2, which is really big. Like I've killed 2 dreads, now he only has 2 dreads to actually kill my stuff
versus your 4.
Yeah, so like I still have access to do things. I pick up my dreads, I bring, and like I mentioned, as soon as his Terminators or Paladins leave his home objective, I pick up 2 of my dreads and drop them by his home objective just to be able to start making their way there. Because this is Scorched Earth, and I wanted to try it to see if it worked, and it managed to work out where if I kind of shrink the board, and because I already have more resources and I've eliminated more of his resources, that's better for me to kind of do more things. So like I started the Scorch action on my top objective instead of just holding it. Like, yes, they no longer can sticky it, and like I don't score points for that, but I was like, I have more stuff at this point. If I kind of shrink the board,
I got you. So you're blowing up
objectives.
The outside objectives to force people to play in the middle, basically, or at least play on one objective, not all 3.
Yeah, because like I can like Scorch that, and then 32 OC is on the other side 1, and then he has strung out the 10 Terminators from my home objective to the middle objective, which are like, that's a good idea, I think.
No, it's just so funny that works in 10th and it doesn't work in 9th. So
yeah, it was very interesting. But what I made it difficult for him though was I moved dreads over the 2 dreads that I had near my home objective, because Paladins are still tough, like they're still scary. I still had more OC on my home objective. He didn't control it, but I also didn't control it. We were stalemated on it. I can't remember what the term is for that, but because I didn't want him to get more OC on it, I tagged 2 dreads from 2 different locations into his line so that his pile-in and consolidating gets really funky, and he can't actually get more OC onto the objective because the closest thing for his guys to get to is the dread off the objective. So he can't actually get more OC on it, so I ended up holding that objective the next turn. So like he didn't kill it in melee because he just didn't have enough tax to get through. And then I was like, this is what I want. The dreads aren't going to necessarily kill the paladin super fast.
Yeah.
And he'll eventually whittle me down. But now that I've tied up paladins, which are his other big scoring piece and big damage dealing, my other stuff can do other things.
Yeah. Hey Steve, thanks for swinging in, man. I got a little distracted during one of your descriptions there because you said, I don't know if the Terminator brick with Drago kills a Dread Knight on average. So I have all these profiles already plugged in to Unit Crunch. Would you like to know the answer?
Sure.
if everyone can swing, which
There's
moving
two that couldn't, but yeah.
yeah, moving 10 Terminators and Drago can be a chore. If everyone can swing, you have an 82.7% chance of schwacking a Dread Knight in close combat. It comes down to 27 hits from the normal guys, 13 wounds, 7 unsaved wounds for 14 damage just from the Terminators if you're charging.
Mhm.
And then Drago does another 3 damage. So you're doing 17 damage on average. So an 82%, 83-ish percent chance to kill. So,
Yeah.
and as we just discovered from your description, yes, you can pick up a Dread Knight. So.
Yeah, that's definitely some things that like trying to make those quick decisions was sometimes a little bit difficult. But like looking at that, I'm like, can Drago do this? And then I just like do like quick little just napkin math or just like looking at the number of times. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is like pretty feasible compared to like killing something else. I'm like, okay, let's do it then. But yeah.
Yeah. I didn't like this is actually kind of fascinating, right? Like if you were playing Eldari at the start of 10th, you were already having a discussion about what happens if I go into myself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, maybe phrasing wasn't great on that one, but you know what I meant, right?
I
like what matter? What happens if I hit the mirror? Because they've been amazing for like a whole year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Grey Knights have not been amazing until very recently, which we are now good. And so now you have to consider like, oh, like I'm seeing more people playing Grey Knights because, you know, we have some play now. Now I have to have I should probably plan for the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
So like I've never unit crunched out how many Grey Knight Terminators can kill Grey Knight Terminators on the charge or whatever, you know, because I've never needed to know.
Yeah.
But now it's like, oh damn, I kind of need to know. You know.
It was quite funny too, because like that was the mirror. There's at that tournament there was only 6 Grey Knight players. In round 5 there were 2 mirrors.
For Grey Knights?
For Grey Knights. So it was me and David and then Daniel
Wow.
against another Grey Knight player, which was like that, just kind of funny just to look at that.
I mean, there's always the ride and die guys, right? Or like, you know, like a lot of orc players are going to play orcs even if they're the worst army in the game, just because they like orcs. But yeah, that's interesting. That's so low. 164 players and 6 people brought Grey Knights, but 4 made it to 5-0.
Yep.
Or yeah.
Oh, 4 made it to 4-0.
Right. So 4 made it to 4-0. That's wild. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And at that, yeah, after that, just like tying up his purifiers, being annoying with the paladins, and just double tagging, so consolidating is really annoying. I ended up, what was it? Because then this is like why I like the double strikes and whatnot. I also had the 2 more dreads get to his home objective and start being annoying there. His again, this is just a little bit lucky in my favor, where it's like his Grandmaster with full rerolls fails to kill one of my dreads on the objective, which just feels kind of bad. Where it's like I just did it to him, like a turn or 2 ago, and then he does it to me. He gets a little unlucky with his damage. I pop some like 4-ups out of that. I'm like, I have 2 or 3 wounds, and I passed my battle shock test. I am contesting your objective. I am so sorry. And and that was the fun part there, where it's like that was going on, and then I had another dread that didn't make the charge come in to tie him up, and then I prognosticated rival onto his home objective and started to burn it with strikes. Just because his dread can't kill both of my dreads, even if he splits attacks, realistically. So it's like I just burned that objective for 10 victory points. So that was just like, I was like, this is a good position that I'm in, that he just can't do anything about it, because the paladins are back at the middle objective getting tied up. They're gonna kill the dreads, but they eventually did kill the dreads, but they were so far out that I think they only had 1 or 2 psi cannons to shoot into it, and I misplayed some rolling where he said, oh, like 6 shots or something, and I actually rolled the wrong number of dice kind of thing, or I should have slow rolled it because some guys were in cover and some guys weren't. I was like, that's my fault, and I just like picked up the squad just because I'm like, we're not gonna go back for that because that's on me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then yeah, I think he still had his paladins and Stern left, and I just had the Terminators on that one side objective, and I think the one dread, and then I think that was pretty much it. Like it was like down to the nail biter essentially, where it's just like it was quite back and forth, but I was just keeping that little lead of just being a little bit more positioned in places that were favorable to me, and then dice went a little bit in my way in some instances, and just eked out the win. But fantastic opponent David is, and it was really awesome, and really hope to see him going forward as a great knight. Because yeah, he went 5-1, and I think he also went 5-1 at another tournament that he went.
And then you had to go and knock him out, man.
I know.
Yeah, David actually came in 6th. So you were 2nd. He was 6th. Not bad. So in the top, and then Daniel was 13th.
Mm-hmm.
So in the top 20, there were 3 Grey Knights, and there were only 6 Grey Knight players there out of 164 players.
Yeah.
See, I could have come up there and played, and I would have dropped. I would have dropped the win rate a little bit, you know. But I'm a scourge of the mid tables. That's my thing. So your final match, you went into Hypercrypt Necrons.
Yes.
So uppy downy versus uppy downy tough melee versus uppy downy meh but good shooting. Who brings model back? So what's I mean.
This was a scary match. I mean, this was kind of like, it's scary, but also in a weird way, of all the armies, like, because this is only like my second GT, and I only really play with like 1 or 2 people, and my one friend who plays Necrons. I know Necrons at the very least, so it's like
so that's good.
It's a comfort matchup, not an easy matchup. I know what he wants to do, kind of thing, and he also brought a very interesting unit, that I've quite literally never seen a Necron player before. He brought a Tesseract Vault.
Okay.
It was quite interesting. It's like like the open monolith with the Catan shard in the middle. Massive unit. Apparently it was the scourge of quite a few people. It did pretty decent into me, but the 24-inch guns with like D6 plus 3 blast indirect. It was interesting. It did some stuff, but it just stayed on his home objective all game.
Okay. I gotta look this thing up, but please,
I know. I asked
continue.
him too. I was like, "Can you tell me what this does?" Because I don't know what it does.
Tesseract Vault. T12, 24 wounds. And it had it's a Satan.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, what's the mod? I gotta look up the model now.
It's really big.
Oh, that's a cool model. Oh,
It's
that's
really
the little guy
cool.
stuck inside.
Mm-hmm.
I should stop being a bad host and I should have my web thing work, but I think it's busted. Anyway, studio mode. Here we go. Now I can. Anyway, please.
Yep. Sorry.
Continue, and I'll hopefully fix this.
So going into the matchup, he has what the like Nightbringer, Void Dragon, all standard. 2 Bricks of Wraiths, also really standard. All very scary because that's a lot of OC. This was Purge the Foe. I did manage to go second, which is really big for either side, whoever goes second, because getting kill and kill more on turn 1 is what ended up happening, because I go second. He went first. He got homers and assassinate, discards assassinate.
Yeah.
He moves his
turn 1. That's gonna be real hard.
Yep. So I just don't give him anything because I'm not going to. He can't uppy downy yet. And what ended up happening is then the only thing he really gave me an opportunity to shoot, or the only thing that I was like, hey, I can most likely kill this, was his Doomsday Arc that he had moved up to draw some line of sight to shoot at one of my dreads. It's like, okay, I just need to kill this and I get 8 points. Like, this is fantastic if I'm able to do this. So I picked up Kaldor, I picked up 2 dreads of Kaldis, and I was
There
like,
we go.
okay, let's get some angles to be able to shoot at this thing. And I wanted to kill it in shooting because I dropped Kaldor to have a 9-inch charge to either the Doomsday Arc or Wraiths on his objective. Unfortunately, I didn't kill it in shooting. I chose to forego shooting Stormbolters just because Stormbolters typically don't do anything.
Yeah.
And then I left it on 1 win. I was like,
Just
I
yeah. Right. We were saying this earlier, right? By the way, if you are heads down like painting a model, the Tesseract Vault is up on the screen right now. I fixed my overlay. I'll keep it up there for like a minute or two, but please carry on. It's a cool model. That's really neat.
yeah, it's fantastic, and he had his army was well painted. So didn't kill in shooting, so I used Kaldor to get the 3-inch charge to kill it. So that's just a big 8-point swing, which is what I definitely need in this matchup because it was quite tight. I only won it by 4 points. It was 84 to 80 at the end of the game.
I meant to mention that at the beginning, and then I think you gave me you threw me out of my OODA loop when you mentioned this model. But yeah, this was a really tight game. It was 84 to 80. So both of you were scoring very well, and you just eked out the win probably at the last second, right?
Yeah, it came down to like he outscored me on he outscored me on secondaries.
Excuse me?
Yes,
I
know.
take that one personally.
I'm ashamed that I did not outscore him on secondaries. It was tough, but then I did outscore him by a good chunk on primary just because the whole hold more, kill more. I was able to just kind of get that where I wanted to at times. What ended up happening? So killed that, got 8 points, tied the Wraiths up. They don't do too much Terminators. I just out OC the objective. I think he falls back. I tried and I just didn't get enough movement because they moved 10 inches. I tried to wrap one of the Wraiths to so that if he moves 10 inches, I still have my one guy on the far end of his base, so that if he moves 10 inches, I can miss away.
Right.
I didn't do my measurements correctly. He was able to stay outside of 9. I was like, well, these Terminators are going to get shot. The Tesseract Vault, I think, killed 3 or 4 of them in shooting.
Yeah, that thing has some. I'm actually trying to get its. Yeah, it's pretty shooty.
It has a bunch of like 0 AP 1 damage shots, but the big gun is D6 plus 3 shots. Blast AP, its strength a lot. AP 3 damage 3.
Strength a lot.
Strength a lot.
Yeah.
That's all that I needed to know when he was shooting it. And while that's going on down there, like I've mentioned before, against like shooty or armies that just kind of need to come to me,
it's strength 10.
Strength 10. So I mean, just the right amount for Terminators.
Just the right amount. Yeah.
I moved the second strike squad onto the top middle objective to start sticky it. And the closest thing he had there was the Nightbringer, which I'm like, if you let me sticky it, I'm really okay with this. If you move the Nightbringer, I'm also okay with this. Which like he had to do to stop me from there. And then I rapid ingressed my Grandmaster, and I brought the other 2 or 3 dreads to bear for shooting. Like I had to dedicate, I think it was all 4 dreads shooting and then a tank shock to kill it. And I think this was turn 2. Yes, this was turn 2. I got kill and hold. And this is sometimes just, again, unlucky in some instances where I almost got kill more, but sometimes 5 interceptors don't kill 5 death marks. sometimes.
Oh no.
And like I did it in my head where I'm like, okay, I'm really close. I storm bolted him with 20 shots, killed one, so I'm like, I only need to kill four
Mhm.
with 15 attacks. I think I remember looking at it afterwards, and it was something like a 70 to 80% chance of like killing four of them,
Yeah.
and then I kill all but one. I'm like, oh, I don't get kill more. That's bad. That's really bad because this is a tough game altogether. So
Yeah.
I don't get that. The Nightbringer kills my strikes just because it's the Nightbringer. He was able to shoot and charge them.
Yeah, the Nightbringer you can kind of tarp hit. Well, actually, I don't know about the Nightbringer. I think you can kind of tarp hit him with Terminators because you bring one back. Um,
It's
but
definitely doable.
but he yeah he
It's
he he slaps.
yeah, it's tough all around though because he has 16 attacks sweep if I recall correctly, or 8 attacks base. So like,
Actually,
i-
checking right now.
if you
14 attacks sweep.
14,
Strength
close.
8
Sorry.
minus 2 damage.
So with AOC, you can definitely get some to not die, but it's not a great situation all around if you can avoid it, but
Yeah.
sometimes you just can't. The big thing though that I was just spooked, I wanted to save my CP, but at the same time I was like, if I just bounce, it's bad because he with shooting, I brought it down to 2 wounds left. So it had 2 wounds,
The
and then I made
Nightbringer?
yeah, the
Okay.
Nightbringer, sorry, yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
Um, so I then charged with the Grandmaster, made the charge, but I'm like, do I like tank shock for those last 2 wounds, or do I just leave it to dice with full rerolls? And there's definitely been some cases where I'm just like, I don't want to leave it up to that because if it lives,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
that
just yeah.
would have been game. Yeah, that definitely would have been game if that thing lives. So I just tank shocked for the last 2 wounds.
I was gonna
Spent my
say. So I
CP.
think you know what you. I think we know what you did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I was like, I don't want to get like leave this to the his 4-up invulns and just not have it go my way. I just didn't want to leave it to that. Um, and then it was just really scrappy back and forth where it's like I didn't kill his race, but then he couldn't kill the Terminators right away, so he brought the Void Dragon over to them. That was also kind of spooky because the Tesseract was just still shooting at them, and I just couldn't do anything about it. Um, I forced him to make a 9-inch charge because I could have missed it away, but he managed to make the 9-inch charge, which I'm like, what can you do? I had to force him to do something at some point. But the Nightbringer, sorry, the Void Dragon doesn't manage to kill all the Terminators, which thumbs up for those guys. They're holding their own. So they managed to not hold it, but contest it. So it's just like he doesn't score his points for getting onto it, but then
Right.
also I don't score hold more, unfortunately, on that turn that it happened. But and then like I've mentioned before, I just took out all his scoring pieces where it was possible. Like he had a lone Locust Destroyer, he had Death Marks, tried to kill
Yeah.
those as soon as I
That's
could.
pretty common right now to see like 3 Locust Destroyers kind of by themselves.
Mhm.
Yeah, because it's a 50 millimeter base, I
Yep.
think, but that's not hard to move around the table.
No, and especially because like they're 30 points, which is really not expensive at all for them to do things like that.
Nice. Must be
Um,
must be nice to play armies where like your best battle line doesn't start at 42 points a model.
True. Yeah.
um, I'm amazed when I hear what people say their models cost point wise. I'm like, excuse me?
Hello.
Like Wraith Blades are 32? Excuse
It's like, okay,
me?
you do that. It's like the
That explains it. Okay. I'm reading the Tesseract Vault. So if you remember in ninth when we had a psychic phase,
Yep.
but Necrons, they don't like psychers.
Mhm.
So they got to do their not psychic at the end of the movement
Yeah,
phase.
the
So they
Catan
got
Fires.
right. So the way that the Tesseract Vault works is you pick a psychic power effectively.
Mhm.
or two of them, and there are three options. Antiman or Meteor is the one he kept hitting you with, by the way. That's
It hurt.
yeah. Devastating wounds too. Indirect
Yes.
fire. Oh man.
Yeah, that was quite rough.
Yeah.
The and the sigil is quite nice in that regard too, where like he shot at my grandmaster, who was on that objective after just killing the good town.
Mhm.
He didn't have any other shooting lined up for it. So I was like, what is the range of this again? He's like, just 24 inches. And then I was just like, measured it on my tape measure, like, oh, I'm just gonna sigil just like literally, I think it was like a half an inch or something to the left.
Just like bamfs
Yeah,
bamfs
just
backwards a little
bam.
bit.
And then he's outside the 24 inches. I was like, cool. Now I hold the objective. Now I don't get shot. It's not so much movement, but 4 points for getting. I think I got hold more the next turn.
And he's like, "Damn you, Grey Knights!"
Pretty much, it was a little shuffle.
Yeah.
But yeah, like he was scoring just left, right, and center for secondaries because he's got 34 secondary points. I got 26 because I had a bad turn of attempt. Oh, I drew assassinate first turn,
That's rough.
so all his characters are quite nicely hidden and away, and then tempting
Yeah.
target turn 2, and he had a brick of wraith and the void dragon on the center objective. I'm like,
Did
I'm
you
not going
say
near that.
if you went first?
I went second in this one.
Okay, that's all right. So I mean, yeah, assassination has a lot more play going second than it does first, but on turn one, it's not great.
No.
So yeah.
Like I guess hindsight, I probably could have gone Calder Drago into the Wraith brick
Mm-hmm.
and paid a CP for Epic,
yeah,
but I just wanted to
for
guarantee
devastating. Oh
for
yeah.
Epic Challenge.
Yeah, I mean like that's always funny to think about, like doing that, or like doing that with the Grandmaster tonight. That's always fucking hilarious to think about, just like Epic challenging some technomancer with your
It's hilarious.
well,
Just
yeah.
big hammer.
But like because they still keep the abilities through that activation, you know, like you're usually trying to schwack out a feel no pain, right? Like your brain for Yanari, it's like, yeah, I can kill her, but then all the Harlequins she's with, like, still have a feel no pain or whatever she's with, you know.
And Calder Drago can do it even through the feel no pain. Through the feel no pain, it's like a 92% chance.
Yeah.
I've failed that once before. I'm like,
yeah,
it feels bad, and
it's
I didn't think about it at the time, but that's probably would have actually not been a bad choice because I did make the 9-inch charge, so I definitely could have like put probably 3+ Terminators into the Doomsday arc just to get, because I only had 1 wound left, so I just needed one thing to get through, and then probably could have assassinated.
And I'm not trying to tell folks that that's a bad idea. Don't do it. It can be amazing. It's just it means that like your Terminator's charge in to this Wraith brick. Okay, let's say like Kaldor just schwacks the like Mancer. Those Wraiths still have a 5-up feel no pain for that activation, which means you're probably still gonna be stuck in combat for 1 more turn. That's all. So you just have to keep that in mind. Like if you need to kill that unit to use your Terminators for next turn to win the game, then you can't make that charge and you can't make that play. But if but you could also be like, oh, I don't want to get shot by that Tesseract Vault anymore. I can charge into Wraiths, not kill them, and now I'm I'm safe unless they fall back and stuff. But I mean, you know what I mean. Like you can play that game. So.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and in that matchup, it's just kind of being like, I usually don't try to kill Wraiths just because that's just too much effort to try to kill Wraiths. It's more so just gucking them up and just trying to keep them where I want them to be, because they're not killing Terminators, and the Terminators will slowly whittle them down, possibly, kind of thing. But like we mentioned before, 32 OC on an objective, if you can get all the Terminators on there.
Yeah, I mean there is
they're
that
not
like
outscoring.
if you just need to body them off of an objective, then it doesn't matter if you kill him or not,
Yeah.
obviously, right? Like, because yeah, in that instance, you know, you're just gonna effectively bounce off of each other for 3 rounds or something.
Yep.
But if you're just like, yep, oh, you killed a Terminator, it'd be a real shame if he got back up the start of my next turn. No, like,
Exactly.
and then he's like, oh no, you killed a Wraith. It'd be a real shame if it got back up at the end of my next turn. Like,
Yep.
damn.
Yep.
That's funny.
And what was it? And then he made a good play, and I was looking. I expected it just because like I only had so many bodies. He moved his other brick of race to my home objective to charge and start to contest that, and I specifically moved them to be like in a way that he could only get 3 or 4 bodies on there. And I had backed it up with a dread on the back of it and then the 5 interceptors as well, just to be like, if you do happen to get lucky and kill some of my Marines, I still have enough OC that I should be fine. And that's like, I guess I haven't talked about that a whole lot, but it's just like just having redundancy in the plans, like in the mirror matchup, like I mentioned, the Grandmaster's like, if I don't fail the 9-inch charge, I'm just making it so that he can't 3-inch deep strike and make it really hard for his other dread to go around it to actually do what he wants.
Yeah.
So
So
just like
even if you fail, your unit is doing something useful.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
right.
Requires a little bit of forethought, and I'm still learning and getting better at that, but just like when it does happen, you're like, oh yeah, that feels good that I purposely planned that. It wasn't accidental, which the accidentals do happen.
That's definitely the way I usually play is, oh, I move blocked you. Yes, I meant to do that.
Yep.
I perfectly screened you out from doing that secondary that I didn't know you were going to draw.
Totally on purpose.
Yeah.
And I think like another thing just like into this matchup as well, specifically just for more uppy downies, is just being aware of what cards have been drawn.
Yes.
It's kind of something that's just always in the back of my head, be like, okay, especially because you can pick up 3 units. It's like, do I need to pick up all 3 units? More often than not, you don't need to.
Yeah.
But I usually pick up like interceptors if I can, just because that move is quite nice for getting into little annoying places, which happened like I think 2 or 3 times of this game, where they just kind of got into like behind enemy lines. No behind enemy lines, but just like engage, cleanse on an objective, and just it was just kind of just the primary for this really can favor Grey Knights for the kill and kill more.
Well, bit, just this is purge the foe, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So it's like I got, because he got
going second in this one is huge.
Yep. That's
huge.
Quite huge. Because he got 3 turns of 8 points and then 1 turn of 12, where I got 3 points of 8 and then 2 turns of 12 because I got bottom of turn, which got me the 8 on the first turn, and then I got, I think, hold more or kill more on bottom of the last turn, which that was like pretty much, I drew 2 secondaries. What was it? Attempting target and, sorry, that's him. I drew capture enemy outpost, storm, and storm hostile. I was like, I'm not getting to capture because he has the Tesseract there. I'm not touching that big thing, just staring menacing.
It's only OC8.
It was really funny. One of the judges kept on coming by and just making side comments, which is like, I don't know if you've seen this thing in the back here. It's right here, standing here, just making sure that you can see it. And it was just a fun time of just like little offhand jokes like that.
Yeah.
And I didn't calculate the score at the end of the game quite yet, but then I was like, I have a CP. I think I need to do it. I redrew one of my secondaries for Bring It Down, and he had a reanimator on an objective. So I was like, okay, 1 dread can kill a reanimator. The 4-up feel no pain on a reanimator is really annoying, but through shooting and charging, I managed to kill it and then get Storm Hostile for like an 8-point swing, which then just barely eked it out.
Those things are really good.
I tried to kill it earlier in the match for a kill more and failed to do so, and then it healed back to full. just because it heals itself for
Yep.
a D3 and then another D3 because it's a reanimator. So I was like, darn, it was worth a shot.
There it is. Canoptek.
Didn't do it.
That's it. Yeah, Canoptek Reanimator. So feel no pain, 4-up. Yeah, while friendly Necrons unit is within 3 inches of this model, each time it uses reanimation, it reanimates an additional D3. And then it, yeah, and it's any friendly Necrons unit, so it gets its own aura. And it's 75 points. So you had to shoot it, charge it, and tank shock it with 185
I
points?
didn't have the CP.
Okay.
But
185 points in 3 phases if you include charging it. Not that you tank shock, but like just like you had
but
to
still, it's like
yeah. Okay, 2 phases of actual damage from a unit that costs almost 3 times.
yeah, they're always surprisingly tough to kill.
4-up Feel No Pains, man. They're, I mean, even like I said, like 5-ups, man. Just
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sometimes just does not feel like it should. It feels like when they roll it, it's like a 3-up or better kind of thing. You're like,
Yeah.
that's too many. Can you stop making those saves?
I play a lot of orcs because my buddy Zach is like always available and he loves to play and he just wants reps. And I can't tell you how many times like Mazrog has just tanked like a whole gun line or something because he's just so hard to kill. And then other games he just folds to like a wet, like a runny nose. He just dies. You're like, wow. Would have been nice if he did that the last 3 games we were in or something. You know? It's all those Feel No Pains, man. I mean, even like playing into Black Templar because they can pick the 6-up Feel No Pain. That effectively gives them 16% more wounds on the board for the whole game.
And it especially becomes really annoying when like 2 damage with a 6-up Feel No Pain into a Space Marine body. Suddenly it's like, all right, that just actually gets pretty spooky. Or like into Sword Brethren who have 3 wounds with Dread Knights with 3 damage. It's like, okay, suddenly instead of killing 2 to 3, it kills 1 to 2 if you spike one of your Feel No Pains. It's like, crap.
It changes the math a lot. The further down the activation line you go, when you add more gating rules, like the more impactful those like rules are. Like if there was a Feel No Pain or something, you know, like another layer, like those would be even more precious and more valuable, you know.
That'd be really crazy.
No, that'd be completely like asinine. I'm not saying they should do that. You know, it's like when invuls were all over the place at the end of 9th, and so they're like, here's some real guns that ignore invuls, and everybody's like, oh no, why?
That was spooky.
Right? Like the Votan fuck bus with the huge
oh yeah,
the huge railgun on it, the land fortress.
On the receiving end of that, but I definitely remember reading up quite a bit about that. It's like, oh, that's a scary gun.
Yeah, I mean, Dev wounds used to just do mortals, so you know. Anyway, so that's the end. So your second GT ever, you go to a super major, you play the second undefeated with a underdog-ish faction. It's not like you were playing AdMech or something.
True. We don't need to talk about AdMech.
Yeah,
we already know that their situation.
Poor guys.
Indeed.
But so I mean, how are you feeling at this point, right? You like
it feels like again, the one I got like first off just after 6-0, it was just like, all right, I've actually done it. Like I actually went, I was expecting 2-4. That's what I wanted, and I went 6-0. I was like, is this crazy? And it was a little bit disappointing isn't the right word, just because I'm still super excited just where I got for my second ever GT, is that the pairings hadn't fully updated yet from I think one or 2 other players. So when I did check it after my game, I wasn't first. And then I checked again at the pairings, and it's like I'm second. I'm like, you know what? Like, I was like,
Like you had it
darn.
snatched out from under you.
Yeah, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't complain. I went 6-0 with a list that I felt comfortable with, and I got quite nice pairings in terms of knowing the armies that I played into. Like don't have a ton of experience into a lot of other chaos armies or even just sisters kind of thing. I
Yeah.
know Space Marines and I know Necrons, and then I also know Drukhari. Those are 3 armies that I'm quite comfortable with, and I know what most armies do just because I like to read and just pay attention to what armies are bringing, but I just actually haven't had the experience yet to play
Yeah.
into it. Like I haven't
Yeah.
had experience into Ironstorm or Ironstorm specifically, but I just kind of know the idea of what to do.
Yeah.
Don't get shot is one of them, but you know.
Sure. That seems like good advice regardless. Even in your daily real life. Just don't get shot. It's fine.
Don't get shot. It's just easy peasy.
Yeah. So just for giggles, I looked up the I'll bring this up on the screen for people. But I brought up the final points. So because I was wondering, I was like, oh, he had that really low scoring first game. Like if he got a 99 or something, like would he have won? And the answer is no. The person in first place scored tremendously well throughout the entire event, and their total battle points was 532, and yours was 460. So even if you did score an extra 50 points there, you would be at 490, which would still be about 40-ish points shy of first. So not to again.
Oh no,
not
I
to say
completely
that
understand. They played their fantastic games as a sisters player, and they like full kudos to them. They played a great games. Unfortunately, I didn't get to talk to them or see their games, but I've heard that they're a fantastic opponent and great player, and just kudos to them.
Yeah, I was just like, I was just like, oh man, well, I hope BCP will show me what the total points are, because I mean, he probably already knows it if he would have scored well in the first game that he would have won, but that ended up not being a thing.
No, it wasn't that close. I think what the first tiebreaker though is kind of funny, where it's opponent win percentage, and that we tied on.
Yes, I saw that you guys tied on. I'm trying to see.
61.1 repeated.
Yep.
Or 4 or 5, whatever it was.
That's correct. And then he won on battle points, and then he also won on the run a show, or SOS.
Yeah, strength of schedule. I think
strength of schedule. That's it. Yeah. So for those of you who aren't aware, that's one of the tiebreakers is how strong your other opponents were. So based on how well they did in that tournament. So if you beat people that didn't do as well, your strength of schedule is lower. So if you tied in all the other things, which would be insane, then that's what would have tipped over the scales and broken the tie. So you guys tied on win losses, obviously. Then you tied on opponent's game win percentage, and then the first tiebreaker was battle points, which he won on.
Yep.
And if that had been a tie, he would have won on strength of schedule. So Warhammer is complicated. Even the tie-breaking part of it is complicated.
Well, I've never actually looked at tiebreakers before, just because I've never thought about it. I've never considered myself to be able to be in a position to get into a top 5, and then suddenly I was like, all right, I came second, but like, how does this all work? And so I was to learn about that. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Having run a tournament now through BCP, like you have to select all that stuff when you're setting things up. So
that sounds like
and there are a ton of options. No, actually, what's really great is here in the Pacific Northwest in the United States, the primary dozen or so tournament organizers, they're all in a Discord, and they just they all have a standard.
Oh,
so they're like, we're gonna use Game Workshop terrain. We're never gonna put in fucking servo skulls ever. They have these agreements. And so like we don't go to player place terrain events here. Not to say that they don't happen, but under those TOs they don't happen. So
Gotcha.
because Games Workshop actually came out with good terrain in 10th. I don't know why you would do PTT or PPT now, personally.
Yeah, the terrain does feel quite good this edition, which I do quite like.
And it's not another gating meta that like, you know, that's the part, right? This game is already super complicated, and player place terrain added a whole nother layer of the meta, right?
Yeah.
Like, where am I gonna stage my guys from? Am I a melee army? So I need to have stuff near the middle. Like, how do I block out them from sticking down their terrain where they want it? And then you have some new player who's like, I play World Eaters, I want to charge you, wee, and you win in the PPT phase, you know? It doesn't feel great.
Definitely feels a little weird because
Yeah.
I think one of the first RTTs that I had attended quite a while back was player place terrain. I'm like, I've never done this. I have
Yeah.
no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Ah.
I mean, like the Games Workshop terrain makes the attacker defender decision basically just I always if I win, I always want you to drop first, so you know.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Like picking the side of the board doesn't matter. Which is okay. Like that it should probably be even on the terrain. It should be player skill, not oh, he got all the ruins and I got, a desert.
Yeah, can you imagine Planet Bowling Ball and just like, huh?
Yeah, but only on half of the map. Anyway, this has been going on 2.5 hours. I did want to ask you, and I figured this would get a lot more in depth, but I did want to ask you about the state of Grey Knights. How do you feel? Like, do you think we need any tweaks up or down or what? I mean, I'm going to say the obvious one, which is, can we just have the librarian's melee profile match everyone else's? That would be great. Because I don't want to... I already have to roll him individually, I guess, because he hits on 2s, but like... Could we just fix the rest of that?
Yeah, I remember looking at that and just being annoyed by that. I'm glad that they finally fixed, or at least, what was it, I can't remember if it was the data slayer or the data sheet thing where it's like Chaplain was leader, or sorry, Chaplain said he could go into stuff, but he didn't have the leader keyword, so he couldn't.
Oh yeah, that was a hilarious
obviously an oversight, but it's just like but the Grey Knights as a whole, they're definitely good. It's one of those armies that's hard, I find, to really like. I think that they're in a totally fine place right now, and it's hard to hit them because we only really have like 5-ish data sheets of just like stuff that we bring.
Yeah.
And as soon as you hit one of those, like right now we can actually deal with vehicles to a decent level with Dread Knights, and maybe Dread Knight spam. I don't know. It's tough because it's definitely skew when you bring six and then other big stuff, which like that's fine, I suppose. But it's kind of like I have read that some people, and I think even in like the Grey Knight Discord, just like make the Grandmaster in Dread just epic hero just to kind of stop the spam from happening. Because as soon as you hit the Dread with like a points increase, and suddenly it becomes not super fantastic, and then you have to drop something from your list, that feels pretty bad as a Grey Knight player because we only have like so many units in the first place.
Yeah, we have 3 profiles. I was actually telling this to my Eldari or Yanari opponent last night. I was like, we have 3 profiles: Power Armor, Terminator, Dread Knight.
Yeah,
that's
pretty much.
Like the names at the top may change. Paladin, still the Terminator profile. It just has -1 to wound and it hits on 2s. So that's the only difference. Like the rest of the profile is the same. We don't have like, Space Marines with 140 plus data sheets. We don't have like Drukhari have a ton. Eldari as a whole have a shitload. Yeah. And so they can always kind of find the tool for the right thing. But as soon as one of our data sheets gets really good, we want to spam it because we don't have very many choices in the first place.
And that's 100% the thing where it's like Dreads weren't being spammed at 185 points before. It's just when they brought the gun to be actually a good gun is when they're like, oh, this is actually a good profile now, and it's also just because they're not an easy army to play, just because you have so much mobility, which I think like it's very easy to make mistakes with them.
The brain drain is incredible
It's
on that.
after 6 games, I'm just like, oh,
Yeah,
I'm done.
like
I can finally rest easy.
like just in friendly games, I'm like, okay, if I move here, then like, and I'm thinking this, maybe I'll bait out miss here, but then what if they move first over here? Okay, but then so and I need to use my move shoot move with my interceptors, so I want them to be here, and then I can move them back here. Like it's just the movement phase is like 90% of your
Mhm.
game.
It's a lot, and the
Yeah,
grenades do that extremely well. But just to do that well, because if you don't do that well and you leave something like with their butt sticking out kind of thing,
yeah,
that's really bad, losing your pieces super early.
yeah, absolutely.
And so I feel like I don't want them to see any hits. The only thing that I would like is if they somehow are like Grandmaster Epic Hero. I think that would be fine. But again, like we said, just like as soon as you bump up the points of one of our only units, it just kind of feels bad, and then it
Yeah,
reverts to something else.
I
But
mean
the
like
something else is not anything because we only have like 3-ish units.
the first Munitorum update, they went through and like they just took every unit in the game that had indirect and they like increased its points by like
Not the
30% or something. And you remember when folks were really on that Purgation Squad bandwagon. For those of you only listening, that is, I'm being very sarcastic, like shaking my head right now. And then they made him 192 points for 5-man.
it was
It's like,
insane.
no, we weren't taking them anyway because the gun profiles aren't good. We have one good profile, it's the flamers, and if they don't kill whatever they're shooting at, they just die the next turn because they're within 12
Yeah.
inches.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
It was
so
it was a very cute option, but it's not like a wow, this is game breaking type of option. It's just
yeah, I think it's just because like our heavy weapon choices aren't good in this edition on our like infantry.
no.
Because the sight cannon, strength 8, all right, I'm listening. Minus 1 AP. All right, that's terrible. That is 0 AP.
Mm-hmm.
2 damage. Okay, like Marines are saving on 3s. Actually 2s because you had 1 AP. Well, no, I guess I don't know when I'm yeah, that's I'm dumb. It's late. I had 3 hours sleep last night. Anyway, like if they added ignores cover to the infantry side cannons, didn't change the AP, you might see them played more.
Mm-hmm.
If silencers had devastating wounds, like that might see them played more.
Yep, I think it makes it an interesting choice rather than a non-choice. I still
exactly. Yeah.
don't know if you do bring them, but I was talking about this or chatting with I think Dan about this where I actually just for the either the mirror or just because Space Marines are a popular army and Calidus is a popular unit, the in terms of shooting, the silencer is actually kind of nice into the Calidus, which silencers with
The
4
silencer
stormbolters
specifically. Yeah.
specifically, that's the one instance where like, hey, this actually is slightly better math than the Psy Cannon in the Calidus by like 2 or 3%. So it's not like a blow out of the water better than the Psy Cannon, so it doesn't really matter. But I'm just like, I like the look of silencers, so I might try that or just throw in one of them. And at the same time, it's like I almost never get into combat with interceptors. They're mostly just my action monkeys. So sometimes maybe having like a chaff clearing gun just to move, shoot, move
Mm-hmm.
is kind of cute. Is it the best option? I don't know. I haven't really tested a bunch of
Yeah.
stuff because like also like I only got to play the list that I brought to that GT. I only played it 2 times before. Like I didn't have that many practice
Man,
games to be able to
like
try
like
things
a
with.
savant or something.
Like a
You're
what,
like
sorry?
you're like a savant. You like you picked it up playing it twice, went to a super major and placed second, undefeated. Like
Yeah, like I have
It's,
like played
they
Grey
make
Knights, but not that
movies about
specifically.
this stuff, like if it's in sports.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah.
No, I mean, I went to LVO in 2022, and I had the same goal you did, where I'm like, I want to go 2-4.
Mhm.
I went 3-3, and I was over the moon. I'm like, yay! As
Yeah,
soon
like
as I won
that's
my
a
third
fantastic.
game, I'm like, whoop 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 whoop.
Yep,
You know,
it's like
yeah,
50%. That's a
yeah.
thumbs up.
Like I beat my goal, so I'm happy. And then you're like, I want to go 4-2. Oops, almost won it.
Yeah.
Or two, sorry, 2-4. Like, whoops, almost won it. So I think that's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like excited to go to more, but also kind of just trying to not set myself up too high,
Yeah.
just because
Yeah.
my last GT I went 2-3 with Grey Knights, with just before, I think that was in October. I think it
So
was.
before yeah,
Yeah,
we're a hard we're a
it's
hard
hard.
army to play at that point. Not as hard as we were when we were released because our point values were just
Yep, that
insane.
was rough.
That was real bad, but yeah. I do want to point out that I
Mhm.
know there are a lot of naysayers, but and I haven't been playing a long time. But if you turn to your browser right now, I have stat check up right now, and what's really interesting is they have a faction win rate trend graph
Mhm.
now. So on the left side, you see this is the start of the edition back in last June.
Mhm.
And you can see like Imperial Knights are up at like 71%. Death Guard's down at 21%. Like there's this huge range. As you follow it to the right, you see that things are starting to collapse. Like people are, and then there's the yellow and the green range here. So ideally, they want everyone right here in the green.
Mhm.
As you can see here, we have, like everybody's compressing towards that middle. This is a good thing. There are fewer big winners and fewer big losers, and people are going towards that, that 50-50 middle ground, which is where, ideally everything would be perfectly balanced, which will never happen. But this is the most balanced I've ever seen this game. So Necrons are an outlier at like 57. Deathwatch, my poor Deathwatch, are down at 39. Um, you know, Orcs, Nids kind of low. Um, but Grey Knights are like almost exactly, I think we're 51%. We're right out there with Drukhari.
Mhm.
So we had one insanely good weekend. Like I'm not gonna discount that. Last weekend we won GTs, or we were undefeated in multiple GTs, and we had like a 64% like win
Mhm.
rate. Which if that was consistently 64, we'd be a problem. But
Yeah.
I'm pointing this out to be like, our overall um, win percentage is 52%,
Yeah,
and we're
and
only
that's
4% of the playership. So
yeah, not a lot out there, but I think that's always an interesting spectrum too, where it's like win rates tell a pretty good story in
mhm.
terms of just like I think Grey Knights are in a good position right now. It still takes quite a bit of like we mentioned, how it's just a difficult army with how much mobility. It still takes like a good chunk of ability to get to a high placing position,
Yeah,
but it's also super easy to mess up, which is where that 52 kind of like comes into play, where it's like you said last weekend, we had like 63, 64%, where it's like that at the GT that I went to, there was two Grey Knights went 5-1, I went 6-0, and then I think the others still did pretty decent just all around. So it's just like that definitely boosts that up by a good chunk. But then it's like elsewhere in the other tournaments, like we got some few winners, and then previous weeks it's like high 40s kind of thing, where it's
yeah,
just like it just balances out
yeah.
over time.
I mean, for a long time we were like, the joke was, oh, if you want to go 4-1, bring Grey Knights. Like we're a 4-1 army, but we're not a
Yep.
5-0 army. And now we're like trending more towards that 5-0 area.
Yeah, the
Or the
dreads.
potential to 5-0, I guess I should say.
The dreads definitely do help the matches that were difficult, especially like vehicle
Yeah,
heavy matches and -1 damage.
Yeah.
the dreads help quite a bit with that.
Yeah, I just like, if we're not gonna get rerolls, because the only place we have rerolls in our whole index right now is on a unit that doesn't get any of our special movement stuff, so we're never gonna bring it, especially at 155 points.
Poor Dreadnought.
Poor Dreadnought. Um, like, I'd love to see more like lethal hits. Not saying we need that right now. I'm just saying that, if it was deemed that, the Dread Knight was too strong, I'd like to see some changes like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really weird we get lethal hits on the charge. It's like, why didn't they just give us Lance? That would solve a lot. I don't know what the special ability would be then, because Lance is actually on the weapon profile, but I mean, I guess it could be when this unit charges, then add Lance to the weapon profile or something. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, my biggest thing right now is, what's cool actually with Grey Knights at the moment is you see a pretty big list for variety, and maybe it's because I'm in the Discord and we're throwing out ideas all the time. I'm playing with numerous ideas too. I think we're seeing people talk about like, oh, Manny Chima brought 5 Dread Knights and 3 Land Raider Redeemers and a Strike Squad, and then fucking blew out the Manchester GT or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. It's like, that is the skewest of skewy lists, and it's, that's not a Grey Knight list really. It is, but it's mostly the Redeemers and stat checking you on like high toughness 2-up saves. You know.
It's quite interesting. Where I do like that, where it's like even among the Grey Knight players that have gotten to the higher like standings, where it's like there's similarities but not exact copies of everyone, kind of thing.
And even in an army, as we just stated, like, we don't have a lot of data sheets, but you're still finding this cool build variety. Like, there are people who are like, oh, I have the points for Inescapable Wrath, but that means I can upgrade one of my strike squads to an interceptor squad. And now, like, that opens other play options for me, right? Like, you get your strike squads, you get your interceptor squads, you got your Terminators in there, maybe you have Paladins, you have Dread Knights, maybe you have a Libby or not. Like, you got all these choices, and they're all viable. Mm-hmm. Like, and I think that's really neat. Like, throughout 10th, just since the data slate, I've been playing with brick lists. I've been playing with the Ed Watt style, like 3 Libbies, just fuck it, YOLO lists. Like, I played with your list last night. There's all these really interesting builds out there. And it's not like in 9th where, okay, you start with 4 Dread Knights, or 5, because you could, 5.
Yeah.
And then you bring in your 30 interceptors, then you bring in your 2 tech marines, whatever's left, man. Stick a strike squad in there or something. You're like, oh boy, and then everybody's running the same list because that was the most optimal, And we're not there, and I love that. I love that. Yeah. Like, going to a tournament with 6 Grey Knight players and then discovering that there are 6 different lists or something, right? Is pretty legit. So
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I'm not doomsaying anything. I hope the Dread Knight doesn't get hit. Obviously, if we keep having weekends like we had last week, then the Dread Knight probably needs to get hit. But I don't think we will. I think we'll find that we're still at that, mid 50s range, which is supposedly where we want to be. No, I don't know. Lots of folks are like, nerf Dread Knights, they're ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't want that to happen. Yeah. I can't see it as a possibility, just because they do sometimes, or they have, like, just an example, like before the data slate, what world leaders were at like a 52%, and they got hit pretty decently.
But they're still winning. I know. They're still winning events. Like, they're still a good army. They took out. I don't know. They're all red and gold to me. Like, I don't even. Yeah.
A bunch of
the 8-bound are ridiculous, or were ridiculous, or less ridiculous now. But yeah.
But it's just always interesting to see like what they will hit, what they won't hit, kind of thing. In terms
Oh,
of
I
just
see what you're saying.
like sorry, yeah, that's where it's like they had
I'm sorry.
52%, and
Yeah.
then a bunch of their stuff got hit just to kind of like bring them even. Because if they didn't get anything hit, they would
Oh,
probably be quite up there, kind of thing. So like
yeah.
if the other top armies do get hit and Grey Knights get nothing, they probably do get pretty
Yes.
close up there.
So
So
so that was the thing when the data slate hit, like a bunch of people flocked to the Discord who were like, "Oh my god, we didn't get the buffs we needed. We're still garbage." And it's like, no, hold the phone. Like the top 3 offending factions just got
yep.
hit pretty hard. That's a buff automatically. That's a buff for us. Like, calm down. Let's play some games first before we lose our minds. But oh gosh, I was gonna make a great point, but obviously it's so great I forgot it. No.
Well,
I wanted to. Oh, actually, I know exactly what it was. So, when Eldar got hit the first time, I think it was the first time, is also when they hit Death Watch. So, in the Death Watch detachment, 3 of the 6 stratagems are for special issue ammunition, and they nerfed the shit at, well, they nerfed it once, was a legitimate nerf, which was completely fine, where
yeah, that one,
the double shooting Stern Guard could do like 66 mortal wounds in one shooting activation. It's like, that's kind of gross, guys. That's justifiable. I'm not gonna try to like defend that. But the next nerf that they got, where it's like, nope, it's only on bolter weapons now.
yeah.
And then you watch Deathwatch go from being pretty good, but to, now they're at 31% or something. They're the worst army in the game, I think, right now. I think even AdMech is better than they are at the moment. And it's because, yeah, and it's just because, like, you nerf 3 of our 6 stratagems.
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah. Well, I think that they thought that Deathwatch was kind of holding Eldari in check or something, and that if they didn't nerf Deathwatch when they nerfed Eldari, that like Deathwatch would just skyrocket to the top.
Yeah, because they were holding GSC in check.
Oh, is that what they were?
Is
that what we were holding?
Things to GSC.
Got it.
Because I remember it watching like a bunch of team tournaments. It was Deathwatch was specifically brought to deal with the GSC matchup because they did mean stuff to them.
Was the Deathwatch lift 3 10-man desolation squads? God, I hate those things.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was probably something akin to that to a degree.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to end this by trying to stop some of the naysaying, the doom like heralds that are out there. Try to show some numbers. That data, by the way, is all since the data slate. It's not like all of 10th, other than the win percentage is one that is obviously all of 10th. But yeah, I wanted to end on a high note. Things are good. We're in a good spot. Army lists are interesting. Our matchups are interesting. You're not just gonna fight Eldari 6 times through a tournament. It's a good time to be playing this game.
Oh, I agree.
Anything you want to say, Trevor, before we end this almost 3-hour interview?
I guess just like similar to what you were saying with like naysaying and just doomsayers, that it's very easy to be negative just looking at the whole picture kind of thing. I always find it very fun to just be like, okay, especially for Grey Knights, it's not always we need fantastic units. It's just what we can do with those units, and that's where I just like to look at a codex and just be like, okay, maybe not fantastic, but what can we do with what we got kind of thing, and try to make that work in my own little way. Like coming from Tyranids right now are not super duper fantastic in terms of win rate, but there's definitely like some little things. Could they use a little bit buff? Probably, sure, but just taking your own spin and trying to make it work. But it's hard with certain armies. That's like for sure. But always just try to look at the positive side of things as best as possible. It's fun to complain, but
it is fun to complain. Let's be fair.
We all very much so.
We do like to. That's why, like, everybody will tell you stories about when their dice failed them, and very few times will they like tell you the story of when the dice, like like totally won you a game.
Oh yeah, I try my best not to think. I definitely have in the past quite a bit. Definitely tried to not think about that too much. Where it's just like what, like Drago failing a 6-inch rerollable charge across those 6 games. Like he failed, I think, like 2 to 3 of those, but
Oh yeah.
it's like that just happens. That just dice be dice, but just gotta look on the bright side and be like, okay, we're in this position. What do we do now? Kind of thing, rather than just like, oh, lost the game because that one dice roll. It's like
Yeah.
try to mitigate that as best as possible, or put yourself in a position so that it's not actually bad.
Right. Well, I learned a lot here. Thank you so much for dealing with our scheduling issues and
Oh
then
no, no
my
worries.
daughter being a 6-month-old baby. Um, she did us a favor and slept soundly this entire time. So
Nice. Glad
I'm
to hear
not
that.
sure if starting late. I think starting late is better than being like interrupted, right? So,
Hmm.
uh, yes. Thank you so much. Congratulations. I'm on that Discord all the time. I'm always chatting up with Daniel. I should have him on here soon, actually, just to talk Grey Knights. I
Yeah,
think it'd be fun.
he's fantastic and he's got great insight, and
Yeah,
thank you for also having me on your show. It's a
yeah, man.
great honor and appreciation just to actually be here after like kind of lurking in the Discord and even just among other channels and just watching a few of your interviews with other past players. It's just
It,
kind of surreal to be here.
it's always interesting when I hear people are like, "Oh, you're the NoobHammer guy," and I'm like, "What? Like, people watch that?" So yeah, we're it's awesome. But I'm just gonna end it because I'm exhausted. Like I
No,
said, I got three
fair.
hours of sleep last night. This is a 3-hour interview. So everybody out there, thank you for interacting. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Share. Every time we can share these things around, we boost everybody's general knowledge. So thank you all for viewing, and thank you again, Trevor. And I'll catch you guys later. Don't forget to